Welcome to Goodnight Audio, wishing you a pleasant listening experience. I am Liang Chen. In my 8th year as a criminal investigator, I was assigned an extremely perplexing case. Criminals with high IQs are often not uncaught because the police cannot find them, but because even when found, there is no way to apprehend them. That summer, Hoa district experienced a severe flood, and a human head was washed ashore by the torrent. It is common for floods to wash away corpses. However, washing ashore a head certainly indicates murder. The technical department reconstructed the facial features of the head, quickly identifying the victim as Tran V, an employee of a roadside repair shop along the national highway. Police promptly dispatched officers to the repair shop, but a temporarily closed sign was hanging at the entrance. After thorough investigation, the police preliminarily deduced that the repair shop had been closed for approximately 1 week. Combined with the forensic examination results of the victim's skull, the victim's time of death was also estimated to be around 1 week prior. In other words, it is highly probable that this repair shop ceased operations after the victim was murdered. Subsequently, we investigated and discovered that the owner of the repair shop and his 7 employees were all unaccounted for. The repair shop indeed showed luminal reactions, but it was obvious that the scene had been cleaned. Therefore, we expended considerable effort searching for traces. This also implies that the victim might not have been solely Tran Vi, but potentially everyone at this repair shop. We immediately dispatched personnel to search for burial sites in the surrounding areas, as if all of them had been murdered. The disposal of so many bodies would undoubtedly be cumbersome, and the act of decapitation was likely intended to prevent the police from identifying the victims. Indeed, about 1 kilometer from the repair shop, beside a mountain road, there was a disturbed patch of earth. From within, we unearthed 8 headless bodies, unclothed. This was a brutal case, resulting in 8 simultaneous deaths and the disposal of the bodies, indicating extreme severity. The case escalated further, and the discovery of a head amidst the flood disaster in Hoa district caused widespread public anxiety. The entire nation was concerned, and the authorities demanded that we solve the case within 10 days. Through exploration and investigation, we discovered that this repair shop was notoriously ill reputed. The owner, Boss Sun, was a well-known local gangster. If this was a motive for murder, the suspects were virtually countless. Mobilizing the entire police force would not be sufficient. The critical issue was that we could not find the remaining heads at all. Some employees of the repair shop had families in other provinces, making it extremely difficult even to locate their relatives for DNA testing to confirm their identities. This illustrates the immense difficulty of solving this case. After 5 consecutive days of investigation, we had found no useful information. However, just as we were about to give up completely, my colleague Liming informed me, Team Leader Liang, the perpetrator has surrendered. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, but then he added that it was Dr. Qin Jun from Hospital No. 3. When the forensic examiner examined the head, they discovered that the cut on the neck was extremely smooth. It was determined that the weapon used to decapitate the victim was an electric bone saw used in medical settings, leading to the speculation that the perpetrator might be a doctor. However, no matter how we speculated, we never expected the perpetrator to be Qin Jun. He was a renowned national surgeon, the top surgical expert with the highest reputation in our province's surgical field. His hands had saved countless lives, bringing them back from the brink of death. If he had not confessed, even if we had eventually investigated him, we would have suspected our investigation direction was flawed. In the interrogation room, as soon as Qin Jun saw me, he immediately apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, we've caused you trouble." His face was extremely calm, and his demeanor was very serious. But it was not difficult to discern that this composure and seriousness were the result of immense inner turmoil. After verifying his personal information in accordance with procedure, we began the interrogation. However, since it was a confession, we primarily let him recount the motive, time, location, and process of the crime. He sat on the interrogation chair, clasping his hands tightly, and said with a face full of remorse, "I did not intend to kill him. I was forced to do it." Kim Jun's confession a week ago, I drove to the cemetery in my hometown in Deep, Duong district to pay respects to my ancestors. As it was the weekend, I feared traffic jams on the expressway and chose to take the national highway. My car had a flat tire midway, and I did not have a spare. Fortunately, there was a repair shop not far away, so I managed to drive there. The owner was a dark-skinned man with a square face. He greeted me with a smile. I asked, "I'm in a hurry. How long will the repair take?" He took a look and said, very quickly, "Please have a seat and rest for a while." He called 2 apprentice mechanics to help me remove the wheel, and another older mechanic patched the tire for me. The owner walked around my car twice, then said, "Do you want to get your car washed too? It's very quick." I used the excuse of being in a hurry to refuse, but he then said, "I noticed the engine doesn't seem to be in good condition either. Would you like to get that washed as well?" I knew he was trying to upsell, so I used the excuse of needing to use the restroom to temporarily get away. When I returned, the tire had been patched. I handed the owner 200 yuan, which was the pre-agreed price. Admittedly, this price was higher than the market rate, but I reasoned that a shop in this location would naturally charge a premium for emergency roadside assistance. A slightly higher price was understandable. However, at this point, the owner refused the money, smiled, and said, "Sir, your tire is beyond repair. It needs to be replaced. This is a new tire, the best quality. 2,500 yuan. Thank you." At this moment, I felt something was wrong. Everyone in the tire shop was looking at me with threatening eyes. Some of them were even holding tire repair tools. I knew I was about to be extorted. I miscalculated the distance. Even if I called the police immediately, they would have enough time to beat me severely before the police arrived. It would be better to pay the money first, and then report to the police to ensure my own safety. I rummaged through my wallet and said, "I only have 2,000 yuan in cash. Will you take it?" The owner glanced at it and quickly reached out to take it, saying, "Of course." Why wouldn't I? I thought I was finally free and reached for the car door to get into the driver's seat, but the owner stopped me. He slammed the car door shut, leaned close to me, and said, "Sir, that was just for the tire. We still need to charge you for the engine." As I said, your engine wasn't in good condition, so I took the liberty of replacing it for you. That will be 25,000 yuan. Thank you. As soon as he finished speaking, someone thrust a cash register and a POS machine directly into my face. I was willing to grit my teeth and lose 2,000 yuan, yet they intended to extort 25,000 yuan from me. I refused to yield any further. I asked, "Do I look like someone who can be easily bullied?" The boss pushed my chest with his hand and said, "Young man, accepting a loss is a blessing. Money lost can be earned back, but a life lost is lost forever." I sneered. "What? You dare to rob and murder now? This is a place where we have control." The boss said arrogantly, "No one would care if 1 or 2 people died." The men beside him threatened me with hammers and wrenches, disbelieving they would dare to harm me. I pulled out my phone to call the police, but as soon as I pulled out my phone, before I could even dial, it was swatted away. Someone grabbed my hand and pinned it tightly onto the cable cover. The boss said, "I advise you not to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't make us resort to force before you hand over the money. By then, you'll lose both your health and your money. If the police arrive, we'll have our reasons. We replace the tires and we replace the engine. It's you who refuses to pay. I am a surgeon. The most precious thing I have is these hands. If anything were to happen to them, my over 20 years of rigorous study and practice would be in vain, and the rest of my life would be ruined." I had no choice but to compromise. I shouted, "I'll pay! I'll pay!" They laughed heartily. Now that's the attitude for solving problems. But I said, "Gentlemen, I have the money. But giving it to you like this is too much." Seeing me like this, they felt I was still asking for trouble and decided to stop wasting words and resort to force. I raised my hand to stop them. "I could give them the money, but at least you should make me feel convinced, shouldn't you?" I proposed, "Boss, let's arm wrestle. If you win, I will willingly give you the money, and I guarantee I will never report to the police to cause you trouble. But if I were lucky enough to win, then you could only blame yourselves for not being capable enough and getting nothing for your efforts. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth robbing money from an innocent person and turning into murderers and robbers, would it?" Perhaps they saw my fair complexion and scholarly appearance, assuming I had no strength, and agreed. But they didn't know that my hands not only needed to be steady, but also strong. Otherwise, how could I snatch lives from the king of hell in the operating room? As expected, I defeated the boss. Of course, I hoped they would keep their promise, but I also prepared for the possibility of them going back on their word. As predicted, the boss not only refused to admit defeat, but became excessively arrogant and directly ordered, "Chop off his hand." He himself stepped forward to grab my hand, but at that moment, for some reason, I managed to grab a file. I felt I was in a state of coercion, with no time to think. I didn't even know how my hand moved. The file pierced straight into the boss's heart. I am a doctor. I could clearly assess the severity of his injuries. Blood gushed from his body like a spring. I intended to stop the bleeding and save him immediately, but the many employees at the auto repair shop didn't give me that chance. Seeing that I had acted, they immediately pulled down all 3 rolling doors of the shop, trapping me inside. Seeing that I had injured their boss, they also attacked me ferociously. I didn't want to die, so I could only fight back desperately. After that, I killed them all. I don't understand what happened to myself. In short, I was completely overwhelmed. By the time I renewed my composition, a serious mistake had been made. I knew my life was over. With so many lives lost, no explanation would save me from death. But my life. Do you know how arduous my journey to study medicine was? Do you know how long I had to practice for these hands to be steady enough to hold a scalpel? I was unwilling. I could only disfigure myself and hide. I embraced a gamble, thinking that if I handled everything perfectly, no one would discover it and my life could continue. Kim-jun spoke, bursting into tears. I could feel his remorse. However, he clearly stated the time, location, and cause of the crime, then briefly recounted the process of committing it. I asked doubtfully, "You killed all 8 of them alone. Is that even possible?" He calmed down a bit and replied, "Under normal circumstances, no. But in a chaotic fight, one can kill their master." In such extreme agitation, I myself do not know how I did it. All I remember now is that while fleeing their pursuit, I started a car parked there. The car crashed wildly inside the garage, killing 2 people. They surrounded me, attempting to encircle me from multiple directions. One of them even tried to run upstairs, intending to jump down and tackle me, meaning I moved too fast. He couldn't find a foothold and fell to his death on his own. 2 more were killed when I severed their carotid arteries with a knife. That knife seemed to be a fruit knife they had left on the table. The last one ambushed me from behind. I threw myself backward, embraced him, and plunged the knife into his back. Another one, while chasing me, couldn't break in time and impaled himself on the knife in my hand. Kim-jun spoke while raising his hands. Thinking back now, I still feel as if I were haunted. By the time I calmed down, my legs were weak and my whole body felt limp. 1 against 8. It is indeed difficult, but not impossible. Most importantly, his testimony largely aligns with the forensic examination results. However, I still have one point of doubt. Originally, your conflict occurred in the outdoor area of the repair shop. Then you used wrestling as an excuse to go inside the shop, which led to you accidentally insulting the owner. And then the shop employees quickly rolled down all 3 shutters, trapping you inside, correct? He replied, "That's right. But this is highly illogical. In this situation, you should have thought about escaping the place where you were threatened and restrained. Why would you think about going inside? If you had stayed in the yard, perhaps passing vehicles would have seen you and helped call the police. Your chances of rescue would have been greater. But once inside the house, with all the obstacles, your chances of seeking help would diminish, and even your cries for help might not be heard outside. I asked, "What were you thinking at the time?" I wasn't thinking much at the time. I just hoped to settle the score through wrestling. Fundamentally, I believed they only wanted money, not my life. In summary, the worst outcome would have been me handing over the money, but I didn't expect to grab a weapon in a moment of desperation. Then, under the dual fear of becoming a murderer or about being killed, I completely transformed into another person and lost all reason. As he said this, he began to cry again. I continued to ask, "So please tell me, how did you stop the killing spree?" Kim Jun's confession part 2. I looked at the corpses scattered on the ground, completely unsure of what to do. I sat on the ground for a long time, constantly torn between calling the police to confess and stopping the killing spree. I pushed myself up with my blood-stained hands. Normally, in the operating room, I also faced blood and life and death situations, but this time was different. I had saved so many people on the operating table, but this time, I couldn't even save myself. I looked back at my past, thought about my future. I had endured so much hardship and difficulty to set my life on a better path. I truly couldn't throw it all away. And what truly made me decide to abandon the plan to call the police was an unexpected incident. Just as I was hesitating, there was a knock on the door and a voice asking, "Is anyone there? Is anyone inside?" I dared not answer, thinking that if no one responded, the person would leave. Little did I know they were also quite determined. He actually drove his car straight into the door, crushing the rolling door into a deformed shape, leaving a small gap. I had a feeling someone looked through that gap and inside before leaving. There was an obstruction in the way. Perhaps he couldn't see anything. But I didn't dare to take the risk. I knew I didn't have much time left and couldn't think too much. In any case, no outcome could be worse than being sentenced to death. Coincidentally, I had a medical bone saw in my car. Initially, I intended to dismember the bodies and then dispose of the pieces, but that would take too much time. So I could only cut off their heads. I thought that as long as the corpses were not intact, the police would not be able to directly identify the victims, thus increasing the difficulty of solving the case. Furthermore, this could also mislead the police into thinking it was a crime of passion. Otherwise, the perpetrator wouldn't have been so brutal. May you have a good day. After they were done, I still heard no movement from the police, so I boldly guessed that the person hadn't seen anything. Thus, I had more time to consider how to proceed next. After thoroughly cleaning the bodies, I began to clean up the crime scene at the repair shop until the police finally arrived. I took the opportunity to bury the corpses nearby under the cover of darkness. Fearing I might leave fingerprints or other evidence on my clothes, I stripped them of all their clothing. At midnight, I drove the car and dumped those heads into the river. The river flows into the Great Sea. In my imagination, this plan should have been flawless. Who could have expected that the flood in Anhoa district would wash away one of those heads? Kim Jun's remorse seemed to emanate from every cell in his body. It was just difficult to distinguish whether he regretted killing people or regretted not disposing of everything more cleanly. His confession essentially matched our investigation findings. From the moment he surrendered, we had already dispatched personnel to investigate his recent activities. Normally, his work was very busy. The hospital almost always scheduled surgeries for him, as the number of people waiting for him to save their lives was truly countless. But last weekend, on July 13th, he did request leave. According to his stated reason for leaving, it was his mother's death anniversary. Kim Jun cautiously asked me, "Officer, will I be sentenced to death?" With the confession, he probably won't be sentenced to death, right? I know I have killed so many people. My sins are grave, but at that time, I was truly not in my right mind. I have saved many people in the operating room. Can my good deeds sluggish for my sins? These hands of mine have only ever been used to save lives. I never thought I would use these same hands to kill. I have voluntarily confessed everything. Can the police speak on my behalf in court? I do not intend to evade guilt. I only hope the court can consider my contributions over the years and not sentence me to death. As long as I am alive, these hands of mine can still save countless people. Whether it is life imprisonment or even life imprisonment without parole, I can accept it. His handcuffed hands pounded regretfully on the interrogation table. I regret it so much. I shouldn't have thought of destroying the evidence to cover up the crime. I should have reported to the police and confessed immediately. I cannot answer these questions of his. But I do not deny that, from a personal perspective, I sympathize with him. In fact, I sympathize with him more than the 8 victims. After all, Boss Sun and his accomplishments relied on the advantageous location of the repair shop to extort money from passing vehicles. In fact, most of the tire explosions were deliberately caused by them. It's just that everyone adhered to the principle of better to offend a gentleman than a petty man, enduring the loss of money to avoid disaster. Even if someone insisted on reporting to the police, by the time the police arrived, they would ultimately only be charged with coercion in transactions, because they did indeed replace the tires and engines, so as long as they returned the money and were lectured a bit, everything would be settled. More importantly, if any scuffles occurred, they would only be detained for a few days or fined a small amount, which would not significantly affect them. When we went to inquire with the surrounding residents to understand the situation, it could be said that everyone despised them. The voices of resentment echoed loudly. However, as criminal police officers, we are not allowed to let personal feelings interfere during the investigation process. Once feelings interfere, the case will deviate. Even a small deviation can lead to a wrongful conviction. Behind every wrongful conviction lies the lives of many people. For both the suspect and the investigator, it is a terrible misfortune. I reviewed the forensic pathologist's autopsy report, which contained a detail that Chin Jun had not yet disclosed. I had his statement delivered to him and asked, "Do you have anything to add regarding these matters?" He carefully reread it twice and replied, "There is nothing else." I asked again, "Are you sure?" He thought for a moment and then said, "The murder weapon. When I disposed of the heads, I also threw the weapon into the river." I instructed my colleague to record the statement and then asked, "Then why was a medical bone saw found in your car?" He explained, "A medical equipment company visited a few days ago to showcase their products, and I casually left it in the trunk. The bone saw has a brand name, which is easily verifiable." I asked once more, "Is there anything else you wish to add?" He pondered deeply, unsure whether to nod or shake his head, then looked up at me and said, "I don't know if I have disclosed everything. Do you police officers have any further questions? Please ask me. I am also afraid of omitting any details." I reread the autopsy report and, looking directly into his eyes, began the interrogation I was leading. "Dr. Chin, what is your sexual orientation?" Hearing this question, Kin Jun was clearly astonished. He thought for a moment and replied, "My sexual orientation is normal." He then asked curiously, "How is this question related to the case?" I told him truthfully. During the autopsy, we discovered that Boss Sun's genitals had a peculiar morphology. Furthermore, semen was detected on his pants. The forensic pathologist speculated that Boss Sun was in a state of extreme sexual arousal before his death, which is why his genitals appeared so wrinkled post-mortem. And the wound to Boss Sun's heart indicates he was completely unguarded at the time. Yet according to your statement, you were wrestling at that moment, regardless of how intense the situation was at the time. It should not have reached a point where he was completely caught off guard and in a state of sexual arousal. Therefore, could there be another hidden motive? He paused for a moment and then said, "No, this has nothing to do with me. It's his sexual orientation that's problematic." He couldn't continue. I sensed his emotions. Perhaps he was disgusted by the thought that the boss might have had lewd intentions towards him at the time. I continued to ask, "What did you do when disposing of Boss Sun's body?" He calmed down slightly and replied, "I cut off his head. Because we were arm wrestling, I was worried about leaving fingerprints, so I deliberately washed his hands clean." "Washed with what?" "Water." "Are you sure?" he asserted. "I'm sure." The reason I removed their clothes was out of concern for leaving evidence. My sexual orientation is not the issue. Even as I moved on to other questions, he kept dwelling on the matter of sexual orientation. We investigated. Boss Sun's sexual orientation was not problematic. He even had several lovers, and we never heard of him having any peculiar sexual preferences. Assuming Chin Jun's sexual orientation is also normal, then this case is very likely related to a woman. Boss Sun and the other employees at the repair shop didn't know Chin Jun, so it couldn't be a murder out of revenge. However, it's possible it was a crime of passion. But if the hypothesis involving a woman is true, with a woman committing murder out of love, the case details seem more plausible. I said solemnly and seriously, Dr. Chin, leniency for confession, severity for resistance. Since you have confessed, you should provide a clear account. If you continue to conceal, not only will your sentence not be reduced, but it will also affect the determination of your guilt. Regarding Chin Jun's situation, it was somewhat ambiguous. I have said everything that needs to be said. His spirit seemed somewhat panicked, and he muttered repeatedly, I shouldn't have destroyed the evidence. I should have reported to the police and confessed immediately. I was wrong. If one commits a crime, one must bear the punishment. I shouldn't have done so many things to escape punishment. I'll ask you one more time, did you only wash Boss Sun's hands with water and remove his clothes? Chin Jun, as if startled, quickly replied, Yes, that's right. I slammed the table. You are a doctor, not a forensic examiner. Knowing how to wipe away bloodstains does not mean you know how to remove traces from a corpse. People can lie, but corpses cannot. Forensic examination revealed that Boss Sun's corpse not only had his hands washed with water, but most importantly, his fingernails had been meticulously cleaned by someone. What was under his fingernails, and how did you clean it? Chin Jun appeared both innocent and panicked. I don't know, I didn't do it. At the time of the incident, were you alone in the car? Suppose there was a woman in the car, a very beautiful woman. Boss Sun, seeing her, was overcome with lust. You became enraged and acted impulsively, leading to murder. Doesn't this better explain why the two of them clearly had a conflict outdoors, but deliberately went inside to resolve it? No, there wasn't. I was alone. I killed them all myself. There was no woman, only me. Chin Jun said agitatedly, I didn't kill him because of a woman. They were blackmailing me, threatening to chop off the hands that I considered my life. They threatened my life, so I fought back. His emotions were clearly beyond normal. His physiological responses seemed to confirm my suspicion. I said, Please calm down. The first question concluded here, after the incident. Besides the difficulty in identifying the victim, the lack of surveillance cameras on the highway, and the absence of any cameras inside or outside the repair shop posed significant challenges to the investigation. That same day, all available police forces were mobilized. One team was assigned to investigate the deceased's identity and social connections. Another team was tasked with checking cameras, extracting vehicle information by license plate, and then contacting each vehicle owner one by one, hoping to find witnesses present on the day of the incident. More than half of the vehicle owners have not yet been investigated. Looking at Chin Jun's demeanor, this case definitely has hidden details. If he refuses to talk, the only way is to let him stew for a while. On one hand, it is to wear down his spirit and disrupt his original plan. On the other hand, it is to give the police more time to investigate. There are still many suspicious points in Chin Jun's statement. First, arm wrestling requires no tools. Only a flat surface to rest the arms is needed. Given their height, they could have wrestled on the car's hood outside, or conveniently brought a small table out. Why did they have to go all the way inside the repair shop? Inside, with all sorts of items and vehicles, it would be neither convenient for exerting strength nor for others to watch compared to the open space outside. Second, Chin Jun claimed that, because the other party wanted to chop off his hand, threatening his life, he used arm wrestling to salvage the situation. Let's not discuss whether this action achieved his goal. Just considering the process of arm wrestling, how much damage could it cause to the hands? Would a doctor who values his hands so much easily engage in arm wrestling with someone else? The third, and most important point, after Chin Jun accidentally injured Boss Sun? Why was the reaction of the repair shop employees not to immediately report to the police, but to immediately lower the rolling door? Kim Jun claimed it was because they were afraid he would escape. But even if the door wasn't closed, could he have escaped the pursuit of 7 people alone? In that tense atmosphere, who would think of closing the door first? I stood in front of the one-way mirror, observing Kim Jun's every move. From the commission of the crime to his confession, it was a complete performance. He repeatedly expressed remorse, but after a while, he seemed to relax, even slumping over the interrogation table as if to sleep. However, we could not allow him to relax at this point, nor give him a chance to reorganize his thoughts. Therefore, we occasionally used the sound, temperature, and lighting in the room to exert psychological pressure on him. Soon after, he began asking for water, and the guard repeatedly gave him water. After a while, he needed to use the restroom. About 2 hours later, I have something else I want to say. I have more details to confess. Where is the officer? He slammed the table in frustration. I have something to say. I said, I'll say it all. Where is the officer? I waited a moment before entering. Seeing me, he was overjoyed and said, Officer, I admitted I lied in my previous statement. There was indeed a woman, but the person who was actually the one in danger was the woman, and she had nothing to do with the killing. His face was filled with anguish, as if his eyeballs were about to burst. He asked, Can I go to the restroom first? You can't treat me like this. I'm here to confess. Your confessions are also very good, but you cannot treat me in such an inhumane manner. I said, Dr. Kyun, when you perform surgery, a short procedure takes 1 to 2 hours, and a long one takes 10 hours. Would you cry out for a restroom break while holding a scalpel? We police officers, while pursuing a criminal, cannot stop mid-chase to go to the restroom, can we? Everyone has their limits, but in certain professions, we can only choose to be patient. When his discomfort became evident, I continued, Of course, denying you the restroom is against regulations. Now, I just need you to tell me one name. After he returned from the restroom, I was still in shock and asked in astonishment, Is Ingenue the Ingenue from Sushi Corporation? Sushi Corporation is the largest listed company in this city. It is no exaggeration to say that it plays a decisive role in our city's economic development. And Ingenue is the secretary to the current CEO of Sushi Corporation, Su Tianquo. Not long ago, Sushi Corporation announced the engagement of Su Tianquo and Ingenue. This news immediately surpassed numerous celebrities to become the hottest headline online, because for Ingenue, this was a typical rags to riches marriage, a real-life Cinderella and Prince Charming fairy tale. This sparked much discussion among netizens. It's her. Kim Jun suddenly calmed down, lowered his head and said, We were childhood sweethearts and also each other's first love. But then she changed her mind and fell in love with Su Tianquo. She begged me not to hinder her future, and from then on, we lost contact. July 13th that day was actually her mother's birthday. After my parents passed away, it was her parents who raised me. After her father passed away, mother and raised the 2 of us alone. She was not only her mother but also my mother. Therefore, on this day every year, we would visit the graves together without prior arrangement. Her sense of direction was very poor, and her driving skills were mediocre. Normally, she would drive at a maximum speed of about 50 kilometers per hour. She could not possibly drive on the highway, so she chose to take the national road. Who would have thought her tire would blow out? Those scoundrels saw that she was beautiful and had wicked intentions. They tricked her into believing her because had a serious malfunction requiring a long repair, telling her to wait inside, and then, fortunately, I arrived in time. My car's tire didn't blow out. I saw her car and drove over to check, but the door of the repair shop was shut, and a sign indicating temporary closure was hung outside. I had a premonition that something was wrong, so I drove over. I heard her scream and directly drove my car through the door. I saw several of them having their way with her on a table, and one scoundrel was laughing while pulling down his pants. I casually grabbed a nail file, lunged forward, grabbed him by the shoulder, spun him around, and thrust the nail file directly into his heart. What happened next is largely consistent with my previous statement. I hated them. They deserved to die. I would not allow anyone to harm the woman I deeply loved, nor would I allow anything to jeopardize her marriage. Speaking of which, Kim Jun felt even more regretful. Every year, Su Tianku accompanied her. I had no idea she was driving herself. If I had known, no matter what anyone said, I would never have let her drive alone. She was very shy and disliked driving. She only obtained her license to fulfill a course requirement. Whenever Xinyu was mentioned, he would lower his head and weep. At this moment, he looked up, his entire demeanor having completely changed. He seemed to have accepted his fate, saying, "Murder for love. A more serious crime than manslaughter, right? It doesn't matter anymore. In short, my life has become this way. When I killed them, I had already figured out how I would pay for it with my life. I was just holding on to a sliver of hope, relying on luck. Clearly, they were all people who were deserved to die. Why should I have to pay with my own life? This could reasonably explain why the crime scene was indoors and why the rolling shutter of the repair shop was pulled down. Gossip is a long-standing human curiosity. I have to admit that despite my efforts to restrain myself, I am genuinely eager to know the current relationship between Qin Jun and Xinyu and Su Tiankuo. I asked curiously, "You said you and Xinyu are not in contact, yet you seem to know her very well. What is your current relationship?" I know that as soon as I mention her name, people will surely gossip about our relationship. I didn't want this to affect her, so I concealed her presence. They had already set a wedding date. I didn't want the happiness at her doorstep to be ruined because of me. After we broke up, we had no contact and did not meet privately until a few months ago, when she got engaged to Director Suo. That's when we met again. Since she has no other relatives, she hoped I could wait as her brother. She and Director Suo came to the hospital together to invite me. I do not deny that I have always loved her and could not help but secretly follow her. But I know my place. We ended a long time ago. After all, Director Su surpasses me in every aspect. Su Tiankuo, heaven's darling, admired by many. From what we know, Su Tiankuo is noble, wealthy, handsome, educated, capable, and possesses excellent character and disposition. Countless women have schemed to marry him, yet he chose Xinyu, a poor and insignificant person. Qin Jun looked at me and asked, "You will investigate Xinyu, won't you?" I replied, "Of course." So, Director Su will also know the whole story. I didn't answer this time because it was highly likely that Su Tiankuo would know. Qin Jun looked very dejected, seemingly worried that this matter would affect Xinyu's marriage to Su Tiankuo. I said, "Regarding the details of the case, we will respect the victim's wishes and not disclose them publicly. But the matters related to the case must be recorded in the report. You also know how significant this case is. The police must provide an explanation to the public. What we can do is not use real names. We will use Ms. N as a substitute then. But as Ms. N's fiancé, I don't think he can possibly not know." Qin Jun was silent for a moment, then pleaded, "Xinyu is very shy. This matter will affect her greatly. I hope your attitude can be gentler when you question her. Don't scare her." Hearing this, I was truly touched. Ever since I became a criminal police officer, my life has been filled with murders and deaths. Every case solved is a questioning of human nature. How many people, for their own selfish interests, disregard familial bonds and friendships and ruthlessly kill? It is rare for a suspect to sacrifice to this extent for love. Part 4. All calls are recorded. Our colleague Xiao Han conducted the interview with Xinyu. Her statement was largely consistent with what Qin Jun had said. Xiao Han mentioned that Ms. N was even more beautiful in person than in her photos, and her facial injury was quite distressing. With such beauty, she really shouldn't be out alone. I'd wager 99% of men would have ill intentions upon seeing her. I asked what happened to the injury on her face. Ms. N said that when Boss Sun attempted to rape her, she fought back desperately, and he struck her forcefully, leaving a very visible scar on her face. As she was speaking, Ms. N's lawyer completed the procedures and escorted her out of the police station. She had a graceful figure, wearing a light blue dress and a matching silk scarf wrapped around her head, completely concealing her face except for her tear-filled eyes. Her attraction seemed out of place in the police station's atmosphere. Perhaps to avoid reporters, they couldn't leave through the main entrance and were inquiring about other exits. At this moment, she seemed to spot Xiao Han and approached her, asking about Qin Jun. She nodded politely, then looked at me and asked about the case. I replied, "The case is currently under investigation. It is not yet possible to arrange a meeting for the two of you." I asked, "Do you have anything you wish to convey to him?" "This whole matter is my fault. He made such a serious mistake because of me. Please convey my message to him. Tell him not to do anything for my sake anymore. Taking care of yourself is the most important thing. My honor is nothing compared to his life. My marriage is not worth him risking his life to protect. If Su Tianku loves me, he wouldn't mind. But if he doesn't love me, even if we were to marry reluctantly, I would eventually be abandoned. Tell him to stop hiding anything," she emphasized. "If the police have any questions, just ask him directly." "All right," she nodded, said goodbye and left. Before leaving completely, she turned back to look at me. "Comrade police officer, criminal investigation now. There won't be any coarse confessions or torture, will there?" This statement started Xiao Han. He quickly waved his hands. No. "All right, that won't happen." Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. Qin Jun's legs are affected by rheumatism. He cannot stand or sit for too long. Please be considerate of him, thank you. After speaking, she left with her lawyer. Xiao Han watched her figure disappear and said, "Captain Liang, look at Ms. N's eyes when she mentioned Dr. Qin. They are clearly a deeply in love couple. The man could commit murder for the woman, and the woman could give up wealth and status for the man." She guessed, "Captain Liang, do you think Director Suo used some means to separate this couple back then? Childhood sweethearts, their first love, and looking at Ms. N's daughter today, how could she be the type of woman to give up love for wealth and status? This case involves the elite circles. It is difficult not to associate it with changes due to power and status." After that, Xiao Han and I referenced the testimonies of Qin Jun and Xin Yu. She looked at the printed transcript of the testimony, while I watched the video recording of her interrogation of Xin Yu. In the video, Xiao Han asked, "So, you had absolutely no knowledge of Qin Jun committing murder?" And Xin Yu shook her head. "I didn't know. The situation was too chaotic at the time. He was fighting with those people and shouting for me to run. I was too scared and only thought of getting out of there immediately, so I drove straight back to the city." Xiao Han asked, "Why didn't you report it to the police?" And Xin Yu handled it nervously, unconsciously withdrawing. This is not a good thing. Moreover, I am Suo Tianku's fiancé. If this matter is exposed, it will not only affect him, but also the reputation of the Suo family, and even the operations of the entire Suo Shi group. Then aren't you worried about what will happen to Mr. Qin after you leave?" Ms. N emphasized I was very worried. After returning home, I called him immediately. He told me that he had handled everything properly. I thought properly meant he had reached a private settlement with them. I never thought he would kill someone. How did he explain it to you specifically? Ms. And thought for a moment and said, he said the other person was not seriously injured, and he had compensated them 2,000 yuan. Then he warned me not to take that national highway again, as it was too long and unsafe. When returning to my hometown, he told me to go with Suo Tianquo or have the driver drive. Speaking of this, Ms. N frowned, and tears suddenly fell. At that time, he also told me, "Let's not see each other again, and don't call anymore. I don't want my existence to affect your life." At that time, I only thought of his silent love for me, and did not realize at all that he was saying goodbye to me. It was me. I was the one who told him that I didn't want us to be lovers, but we could be siblings. I didn't want a world without you in it. It was me. I was the one who harmed him. If I hadn't said that, perhaps he would have confessed right then. I was too greedy. Clearly knowing that things could not go back, yet I still deluded myself into thinking I could hold on to the lost feelings and person. This time, and Shinyu cried for a long time, her emotions breaking down uncontrollably several times. Xiaohan held the two statements and told me that the statements of the two people matched, and there was nothing suspicious. At this moment, Liming brought a report, which was the call history from the telecommunications company. The phone numbers of Qin Jun and Shinyu have both been used for over 10 years, numbers they registered in college, perhaps their very first phone numbers. During college, they communicated very closely, but after Shinyu started working, their communication was abruptly cut off. In the last 3 years, there was only one call at 3:26 p.m. on the afternoon of the day the incident occurred. This is the call record, with both audio files and transcribed text. Which would you like to see? I said, I'll read the text. Xiaohan said, then I'll listen to the audio file. Text and voice bring different feelings, so when investigating cases, we often use this method. One person reads the transcript, the other listens to the recording, and then they exchange the information gathered to determine the most authentic content of the conversation. The call time was 3:26 p.m. on July 13th. Female, brother Jun, I'm so scared. Male, don't worry, I've handled everything. Female, are you all right? Males, I'm fine. Female, how did you handle it? Male, they just wanted some money. I gave them 2,000 yuan for a private settlement. The other party was not seriously injured. Even if they reported it to the police, they wouldn't gain anything. Female, are you injured? Male, I'm fine, don't worry. Shinyu, don't cry, please stop crying. Listen to me, go take a shower, throw away those dirty clothes, and don't let Director Suo notice anything. Male, from now on, when you go back to your hometown, don't take this road again. It's both far and unsafe. Also, don't drive out alone. If Director Suo doesn't have time to accompany you, ask him to arrange a driver for you. Male Shinyu, don't cry. Listen to me carefully. We shouldn't contact each other anymore. All calls are recorded. Director Suo will know as soon as he investigates. We cannot demand that a man accept the ex, lover of the woman he loves. Don't worry about me. I will take good care of myself. I only wish for you to live well. I know you fear I will be lonely. I lost my parents early and have no other relatives. After my mother passed away, you were my only family in this world. But I have my career. I won't be lonely. Shinyu, Director Suo is a man worthy of your lifelong commitment. You two will have children and build a complete, happy family. As long as you are happy, my heart will be at peace. Female, I don't want to. I don't want to. Jun, you are the closest person to me, the very closest. You will always be the closest person to me. Female, Tian, he is not that narrow-minded. He knows everything. Even if we don't contact each other or interact, he knows that in your heart, you have always worried about me. If I don't live well, you cannot be completely happy either. Female, if we cannot be lovers, we can be siblings. Lovers can break up, but siblings are forever. Male Shinyu, don't cry. I beg you, please don't cry. Female, I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. We grew up together since childhood. Went to school together, came home together, ate meals together, and played together. I once thought we would be like this forever. It is fate's injustice, the heavens' cruelty, that forces us apart. I only want to consider you as my brother. Why can't that be allowed? Female, you are not just my ex-boyfriend. You are also my brother. Jun, I read it twice. I was completely overcome when I took my earpiece away to listen. Annoyed, I said, must Mizan only marry Director Suo? Can't they break up? Do all dominating CEOs like to snatch others' love? I dare to bet that Director Suo must have used some underhanded tactics back then to break up this unfortunate couple. I looked at her in surprise and asked, isn't Ms. and just playing the field? She wants to marry a wealthy and powerful CEO, yet she also desires the purest love. Even Qin Jun said that one cannot expect a man to accept the ex, lover of the woman he loves, yet she remained so stubborn. An ordinary man would find it unbearable, let alone a proud man like Director Suo, who considers himself the center of the universe. Is this the information you saw? She snatched the 2 A4 sheets, scanned them quickly, and said with dissatisfaction, you are a man, so naturally, you sympathize with men. Then why do you place yourself in Director Suo's shoes and not Qin Jun's? She put the earpiece into my hand and said, "Listen to this. Hear how resolute and deeply affectionate Qin Jun is, and how Nzinyu's tearful pleas are so distressing. And Xinyu's voice is so pleasant to the ear, and the sound of her sobbing truly makes one's go weak." I felt an electric current run through my entire body. At that moment, I had no mind to think about anything else. She is like Qin Jun, repeating in my mind, "Don't cry. I beg you, don't cry anymore. Your tears are breaking my heart too. I only wished I could be by her side, embrace her immediately, and wipe away the tears on her cheeks. That feeling was truly like 1,000 claws tearing at my heart and soul. I truly cannot imagine if a woman were to cry and plead with me like that. Again and again, she says, "Don't," again and again, she calls me darling. Perhaps even if I were asked to die immediately, I would comply. I forcefully slapped my forehead, and only then could I forcibly cut off those rambling thoughts. Li Ming, seeing my unusual behavior, asked in confusion, "You two are police officers, criminal investigators. You are investigating a case, so why are you suddenly getting so caught up in emotional matters?" I looked up at him, smiled, and said, "Investigation requires maintaining rationality. We cannot be influenced by the words and actions of the suspect. However, we also need to appropriately put ourselves in the suspect's mindset and try to understand the motives behind their actions. I completely believe that Qin Jun could commit this murder and concealment of the body for Nzinyu." Xiaohan said, "This is highly likely. However, as the evidence has been completely destroyed and there are no witnesses, this case cannot be concluded based solely on Qin Jun's confession. I instructed Liming to urge other teams to expedite their progress. If the truth is indeed as stated, it will surely leave traces." Subsequently, we mobilized 2,000 volunteers to assist in examining related surveillance cameras. In addition to road surveillance cameras, there were also dashcam recordings from vehicles that passed through that section of the national highway during that period. Concurrently, we interviewed over 1,000 vehicle owners to search for eyewitnesses. The information compiled largely corroborated what Qin Jun had stated. Many may not understand why. If the perpetrator has confessed, so much manpower and resources are still invested in gathering evidence to prove his statement. Firstly, convictions must be based on witnesses. Physical evidence and confessions, a conviction cannot be based on confession alone. Secondly, not long ago, there was a case where the police investigation, due to the perpetrator's confession, overlooked many details, leading to the perpetrator retracting his confession in court. The final outcome was that the case reached a deadlock, and the self-confessed individual was only charged with obstructing official duties, while the police officers handling the case were accused of extracting confessions and ruined their careers. Furthermore, there have been instances where a self-confessed individual confessed on behalf of another person. Hence, the case handling procedures have become increasingly stringent. At the reporting meeting, I compiled all the documents into a PPT and reported to the leadership. The leader asked, "So you mean these videos can prove that everything Qin Jun and Nzinyu said is true?" I replied, "It can only be said that these videos corroborate the information provided by Qin Jun and Nzinyu. Regarding the specific circumstances of the crime, these videos alone cannot prove it." The leader asked, "Are there any other suspicious points in the case?" I adjusted the PPT and said, "There are still many suspicious points. First, how did Qin Jun fight against 8 people alone? All 8 people at the repair shop died, but he was unharmed. This challenges common sense. He himself could not provide a reasonable explanation, only saying it was due to supernatural influence. Currently, colleagues in Team 3 are combining autopsy reports and crime scene conditions to reconstruct a simulation video of the case." The leader nodded and asked, "Are there any other suspicious points?" "Yes, apart from Tran V's head, the heads of other victims were not found. According to the location Qin Jun provided for discarding the heads, the murder weapon was also not found." Xiaohan added, however, "Bloodstains from the victims were found in Qin Jun's car." A colleague asked, "So does this not yet prove he is the murderer?" This is the third suspicious point. Kim Jun is a doctor. While he may not be as skilled as a forensic pathologist in destroying evidence, he certainly knows how to handle bloodstains. Such a large crime scene did not leave a single drop of blood, yet in such a small space as a car, why would he leave bloodstains? He himself explained it was left accidentally. But I believe a doctor's job is to eliminate evidence carefully, and if he had the intention to kill and dispose of the bodies, it is unlikely he would leave such a significant loophole. The leader asked, "How do you explain this blood stain then?" "We cannot rule out the possibility of an accomplishment. Fighting 8 people alone is unrealistic, and handling so many deceased individuals by oneself is also quite unrealistic. It is possible that Kim Jun was responsible for handling the crime scene evidence, while an accomplice was responsible for handling his car, thus leading to such a significant oversight." The leader summarized, "It appears this case is very complex." Someone reminded us, "But there are only 2 days left until the deadline set by our superiors." The leader said calmly, "The deadline is to put pressure on you to solve the case, as long as we are working diligently and not neglecting our duties. If we truly cannot solve the case within the stipulated time, our superiors cannot do anything to us, right?" Hearing this, we felt much more at ease. But the leader added, however, "Liang Chen, look at the group of reporters surrounding us outside. Look at the millions upon thousands of netizens following this case online. We must act with urgency. When it's time to work hard, we must work hard. When it's time to stay up late, we must stay up late. I haven't slept for 2 days and 1 night. After the meeting, I downed 3 cups of coffee." I interrogated Kim Jun for the 3rd time. He was clearly very uncomfortable, because besides me, many other colleagues will also interrogate him. The same question might be asked countless times. He asked, "Officer, the murderer has confessed. Are the procedures still this disorder? If I had known this earlier, I wouldn't have confessed. I would have waited for you to arrest me. By then, you would have investigated most things clearly. I would only need to nod in acknowledgement. Why would I need to do this now, proving myself to be a murderer? Is it necessary?" I joked, "Without witnesses or physical evidence, relying solely on your confession. What if you change your mind later? Do I have a motivation to do so?" "I don't know," I said. "There are still a few points of doubt, and I hope you can help us clarify them." "All right, I'll tell you what I know." "What was the motive for the crime?" he asked impatiently. "I've answered this question many times. The weapon used to stab was a file at the repair shop, and the knife used to cut throats was a fruit knife. Stabbing from behind was also with a fruit knife." I asked again. "A fruit knife?" He affirmed, "Yes." "Was it the same fruit knife? Was there only one fruit knife?" He hesitated for a moment, then still replied, "Yes. That's truly strange. However, from our repeated examination of the victim's wounds, we discovered that the necks of these 2 individuals were cut by the hands of the same person simultaneously. Are you capable of that?" Kim Jun's expression at this moment was very complex, no longer showing the remorse from the first interrogation. He looked at me for a few seconds, then lowered his head and said, "I truly underestimated you. Officer Liang is indeed very perceptive. So, there was an accomplishment." He shook his head, "No accomplishment. But there were 2 fruit knives. The other one was mine. I had prepared the weapon before entering. Otherwise, how could I have killed that scoundrel instantly? However, at that time, I only brought the knife for self-defense." He asked me, "Doesn't this count as premeditation?" Hearing this, I understood that Kim Jun was far more complex than I had imagined. Of course, I knew that the case was not as simple as we had initially thought. Given the omissions in his confession, he began as resisting arrest when his life was threatened, then killing in a fit of rage to protect his loved one, and now bringing a weapon beforehand. In criminal law, the subjective intent to kill grows stronger, and the punishment will be heavier. "Do you know martial arts?" Kim Jun shook his head. "No, but perhaps you don't understand a doctor's hands." He held up his hands and said, "These hands can coordinate smoothly, and they can also operate independently. Holding a knife in each hand and simultaneously dismembering a human body is not difficult for me. I signed an agreement. So Jinyu truly didn't know you killed someone. When you stabbed Boss Sun, did the other 7 people shift their target of attack to you? Did she just run out so easily? His expression now showed complete surrender. He said calmly, "Yes, she understands me. Her being there only distracted me. If she ran out, I could resolve the issue better. You can also think carefully. If she had been there, would I have dared to casually start a car and have it crash into the repair shop? If I hadn't confirmed she had driven away, would I have dared to act so ruthlessly? I am 30 years old this year. I have known her for 30 years. Since I gained consciousness, I have loved her. Would I dare to let her see this bloodthirsty side of me? I know she is shy. Would I dare to let her be so agitated?" I was about to say something else, but he couldn't hold back anymore and shouted, "Officer Liang, I was wrong to kill, but what good are they? They openly charged tolls there, coveted her beauty, and bullied women. Don't they deserve to die? I am a doctor who saves lives. Go and look at the commendation flags from patients in my office. Go and check my surgical records. How many lives have I saved since I started practicing? I paid for their lives with my own. Is that still not enough? I only hoped this matter would not involve Shinyu and not affect her marriage with Director Suo, which is why I concealed it." When Shinyu was mentioned, his emotions always changed drastically. He said helplessly, "That silly girl. She must have naively thought this wouldn't affect her much. She must have thought that as long as Suo Tianku loved her, everything would pass. She had no idea how much those wealthy families care about gossip. What would her life be like then? How could she hold her head up in front of her in-laws? How could she live with her sisters-in-law? This is not her fault, but would people see it that way? For the rest of her life, anyone who wants to hurt her will use this to mock her," he said. His expression seemed to be in great pain, but he quickly returned to a forced, suppressed normal. I asked, "Are you not feeling well?" He shook his head. I looked down at his legs and asked, "Are your legs hurting?" He looked up at me in surprise. "Didn't Shinyu tell you?" "Yes, she said your legs have rheumatism, and you can't stand or sit for long," he said. "This is a childhood illness, but it has long since recovered since I became a doctor. Otherwise, how could I have completed those major surgeries? Rheumatism is difficult to cure completely," he said. "Yes, but if you pay more attention normally, avoid getting cold, don't overwork, and maintain it well, it usually won't recur. This chair is probably not very comfortable to sit on, which is why you feel a bit uncomfortable." I asked curiously, "Cleaning up the bloodstains must have been a very tiring process for your legs, right? Such a large repair shop, so many deaths. Plus the bloodstains from when you cut off the heads. It wouldn't be easy to handle. Could you do it alone?" The bloodstains were cleaned 3 times. Once with clean water before the blood dried completely. When cutting off the heads, a tarp was placed underneath to absorb the blood. After cutting off the heads, it was thoroughly cleaned with detergent. After burying the body, it was treated again with high temperature. It took a total of 14 hours. By the time the heads and weapons were disposed of, it was almost dawn. Then I burned their clothes, the tarp, my clothes, and gloves, and returned to the hospital just in time for the 9 a.m. surgery. If you think I can't do it, I can do it again for you to see. Is that why he left a drop of blood on the car? The problem now is that we know Qin Jun killed the person, and he admitted to being the killer, but we lack the evidence to convict him. Without evidence, everything is just speculation. At this moment, someone led in an old man and said, "Captain Liang, when we were canvassing residents near the disposal site, this gentleman mentioned that he saw the killer disposing of the body. The previous frustration we felt immediately vanished with this statement." The old man said, "It was too hot, so I planned to go fishing early in the morning when it was cool. Around 4 a.m., I saw someone throwing something over there, but I thought they were also baiting their hook like me. Did you get a clear look at the person?" "It was too dark. I couldn't see clearly, but I did see their license plate. The taillights happened to illuminate the plate. Of course, I don't remember the whole plate, just that it had a 6, an 8, and a 9. All lucky numbers. I even thought to myself what a meaningful plate it was. What was the make of the car? Did you see it clearly? The old man said, I'm not good with these things. I just remember there were some round shapes. Leming quickly took out his phone to find pictures for the old man. No. The old man waved his hand. It was like an oval shape inside a larger oval shape, one horizontal and one vertical. This one. Xiao Han said excitedly. Leming searched for another image and asked, Is it this one? The old man quickly replied, Yes, it's this logo. It matches. The car make and license plate number both match Qinjun's car. I instructed Leming to take the old man to give his statement and kept Xiao Han to discuss the case. She let out a heavy sign of relief. Finally, they had found a witness. The tension in my heart seemed to ease slightly. That's right, this just goes to show you can't do evil deeds. Who would have thought someone would be fishing in the middle of the night like this? Xiao Han said, It would be great if that old man had caught something. Then, it's likely the old man wouldn't be a witness anymore. Imagine how horrible that would be. The flood in Enho district brought Tranvi's head to the surface, but it was also that flood that caused other heads and the motivation for the crime to sink forever. The bloodstain on Qinjun's car is evident. The old man is a witness. Qinjun's confession is his testimony. The final 3 elements of the case are now complete. However, I still felt that it was unrealistic for a doctor like Qinjun, who had a leg problem, to fight against 8 people alone. I decided to go and meet Su Tiankuo in person. Xiao Han and I were not in uniform, but we carried our badges. There was no dash cam, so I told her to turn on the video recording on her phone. Excuse me, Director Suo? Sorry to bother you at this hour. Su Tiankuo's appearance was also quite striking. Just standing there, he exuded the aura of a CEO from an idol drama, and moreover, the gentle and refined type of CEO. He asked someone to pour us tea, led us to the sofa in his office, and sat down saying, You two are here about the case at the car repair shop, correct? This matter concerns my future wife, so I will cooperate fully. Do the police officers have any other questions for me? The details of the case are basically clear, and an official announcement will be made soon. I'm here today only to review the case one more time to avoid any errors. He was very cooperative. Very well. Our questions may involve the personal relationship between you and Ms. Anne. You may feel this is prying into private matters, but we ask for your understanding. We just want to understand the relationship between Qinjun and Ms., and better, and from that, infer his motivation for the crime. Su Tiankuo said, I understand. Please proceed with your questions. Xiao Han reminded Director Suo, we will be recording the entire process. Su Tiankuo had no objections. Xiao Han then asked, We want to know why Ms. and rejected Qinjun and chose to be with you. It is indeed a private matter, Su Tiankuo replied with a helpless smile. However, if the police believe this answer can assist in solving the case, I will tell you the truth. I admitted it was I who interfered in their relationship. Before I entered their lives, they were already a couple, and their feelings were very deep. So, what kind of behavior is this? Some might find my actions appalling, an unethical act. But the me back then believed that as long as they weren't married, it was fair competition. If their feelings were truly unbreakable, they wouldn't have broken up even with an outsider's interference, right? How much of an advantage I had over Qinjun, I believe everyone understands. Especially 10 years ago. He was just a medical student whose meals were a problem, while I was the heir to a listed company with wealth and power at my disposal. In terms of appearance, perhaps my features and Qinjun's were comparable, but like a flower enhanced by silk, Qinjun would surely feel inferior in my presence. So, he withdrew voluntarily. Xiao Han interjected. That's usually how it goes, isn't it? As a girlfriend's boyfriend, he could only afford a cheap lipstick and cook simple home-style meals himself. Whereas I could book a massive banquet hall, gift her the most exquisite evening gown and dazzling jewelry, making her the object of admiration and envy of all women. When Qinjun saw her wearing the tens of millions worth necklace I gifted her, could his lipstick compare? When he rode his bicycle to pick her up from work, only to see her standing before my luxury car. Would he still dare to approach? I am a man, I understand this feeling too well. If the gap between two people was small, perhaps one might consider making an effort to compete. But with such a vast disparity in social status, one wouldn't even have the courage to contend. Moreover, if one truly loved that woman, how could they have the heart to obstruct her bright future? This is common sense, but is reality, not always in accordance with common sense. Director Suo could only give a wry smile indeed. She casually accepted her lipstick and applied it before my eyes, her joy radiating from the bottom of her heart. Without hesitation, she removed the necklace I had given her and said, "Director Suo, if you ask me to be your dance partner again, I will have to resign." She took Chin Jun's arm, leaned her head on his shoulder, and said, "My boyfriend is here to pick me up. I'm leaving now." Then she got on his bicycle, her arms around his waist, her face pressed against his back. I once wished she were a greedy and vain woman, so I could conquer her with my wealth. But she wasn't. She even avoided my invitations for lunch. Every day she brought her own lunch to the company, always saying in front of me, "My Jun's cooking is the best." Jun. You have no idea how she looked when she said, "Jun." I don't know how to describe it, but it made me unable to stop thinking, if only I were her. Jun. How happy I would be. If only she would call me Director Suo or Tian. What regrets would I have in this life? I have no choice but to love her. I feel that if I cannot have her in this lifetime, my life would be a waste. Xiaohan asked, "Then, what did you do?" Su Tiankuo replied, "I didn't do anything, nor did I dare to do anything." Such a wonderful girl. Who wouldn't want to see her rise from obscurity to prominence? But that year, her mother fell ill. Years of hard work had taken their toll, and by the time it was discovered, it was already late-stage stomach cancer. Qin Jun was a fifth-year medical student at the time, and Xin Yu was interning as my secretary at the company, earning an income. But it was very difficult to cover the expensive medical costs. Xiaohan probed, so it was a transaction. You could say that. I kept waiting for her to ask me for money, but she never did. I could not stand idly by, unable to watch her worry about medical expenses, so I proactively went to the hospital to pay the fees. At that time, Qin Jun had already left and was not by her side. Xiaohan was started. "What? Where did he go then?" "Director Suo, you didn't have any ulterior motives, did you?" Su Tiankuo did not quibble over her choice of words. Shaking his head, he said, he had gone with his supervising professor to provide pro bono medical services in a remote mountainous area. Although it was pro bono work, there was a subsidy, and in addition to the living allowance, there were also travel, accommodation, and meal allowances, totaling nearly 10,000 yuan a month. He had no choice but to go for that meager sum. He missed Xinyu's most difficult period. One summer night, amidst the rain, she rushed out of the hospital, grabbed my hand, tears streaming down her face, begging me not to leave, to stay with her, saying she was so scared, so very scared. Although her mother ultimately did not survive, she was very grateful to me, grateful for the hospital fees I provided, and grateful for my companionship. She understood very well what she should offer in return. Yet Qin Jun did not even get to see his mother one last time. When Qin Jun was 12, his parents died in a car accident. His relatives divided the compensation money from his parents, but none of them were willing to take him in. It was the An family, their neighbors, who took him in and raised him. The An family and mother, and held a very special meaning for him. Because the mountainous region was too underdeveloped, he had to trek through the mountains for an entire night to reach the town and catch a bus. Despite rushing, he still did not manage to see Mother and one last time. He resented himself, hating his lack of ability and money, unable to be by Nzinyu's side during her most difficult time, unable to bid farewell to Mother Anne. He resented himself and felt unworthy of Nzinyu. Thus, after the funeral, they parted ways, and Nzinyu began to be with me. I understood very clearly in my heart that she did this out of gratitude, not love. But I did not want to refuse. Indeed, I dared not refuse. Because I knew this was my only chance to have her, In the following years, Qin Jun strove to improve himself and became a renowned surgeon. However, no matter how superb his medical skills were, they could not bring back the deceased. And Xinyu remained by my side as my secretary and girlfriend. She gave me everything she could, but deep in her heart, there was always a place for Qin Jun. I understood this. No one could erase over 20 years of shared life between her and Qin Jun. To prevent me from overthinking and to avoid suspicion, they never contacted each other. Yet, I knew clearly that they were still secretly keeping track of each other. Every time they visited Mother Anne's grave, Qin Jun would wait until we left before coming. However, and Xinyu would always wait nearby and only leave after seeing him arrive. In this way, they would steal a glance at each other and feel content. For all these years, I have been waiting for the day and Xinyu would love me wholeheartedly. Yet, the more I waited, the more I felt the opportunity was slim. I love her, so I must also love her past 20 years. Given my status and position, I could not remain unmarried indefinitely. My family was also urging me. Originally, they didn't want me to marry and Xinyu. Many wealthy young ladies wished to form alliances with me to strengthen our positions in the business world. I could not delay any longer, so I had to propose. She did not refuse but agreed with great difficulty. Sometimes I thought, perhaps she was also waiting for me to abandon her. But I could not. I couldn't imagine life without her. She is truly good inside and out. I have no choice but to love her. When she expressed her hope that Qin Jun could attend our engagement ceremony, I was very happy. When she said she would henceforth consider Qin Jun as family and maintain contact, I was very willing. However, Qin Jun did not come. He could not let go, nor could he forget. For all these years, he had devoted himself entirely to his work. Let alone dating, he had not even glanced at another woman. If he is unhappy, and Xinyu cannot be happy either. Even if I gave her the entire world, she could not smile sweetly as she did on Qin Jun's bicycle in the past. It is truly a beautiful love story, not at all the kind of transactional relationship based on power that we had imagined. Xiao Han listened as if entranced. Conversely, Su Tianku was the first to snap back to reality. He said, "I understand why Qin Jun lied. He was only afraid and Xinyu would be hurt. Please convey my message to him. Tell him to rest assured that no matter what happens in the future, I will use everything I have to protect and Xinyu, and will not let her suffer any harm. Anyone who dares to mock her with this matter will be met with my unyielding retaliation, even my parents and relatives." Xiao Han regained his composure and said, "We will deliver the message." While listening, I carefully observed Su Tiankuo's office. I noticed an exquisite trophy and asked, "Is Director Su a fencing master?" Su Tiankuo looked up at the trophy and replied, "That's right. My parents wished for their son to excel in all aspects, so they diligently nurtured me in every way. However, since taking over as general manager, I've been overwhelmed with thousands of tasks daily, so these hobbies have been neglected. And hair raised by a wealthy family is undoubtedly outstanding in all aspects." I looked at him and asked, "May I ask one more question? During the incident, what business did Director Suo discuss abroad?" It was regarding the application of a patent. Xiao Han interjected, "The matter that Director Suo had to negotiate personally must be a major deal. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I stood up and said, Yes. The Suo Corporation's contribution to our city is immeasurable. I hope Director Suo will continue his father's legacy and lead the Suo Corporation to even greater prosperity. With that, we took our leave and Suo Tianku stood up to see us out. Xiao Han asked me, "What are you suspecting? Could Su Tianku be an accomplishment? If he were present at the scene, would he have killed the thugs who intended to harm his fiancée?" I asked. "But he wasn't at the scene that day. He was abroad. Did he teleport back using a magic door? The flight information is solid evidence." I ordered, "Go investigate Su Tiankuo's entry and exit records. I suspect he was in the country on July 13th. Think about it. Every year he accompanies and Xinyu to visit the grave. This year they are officially engaged. What reason would he have not to accompany her? Even if it was an emergency, Was it so critical that only he could handle it? And was the timing so tight? I put myself in Su Tianquo's shoes and said, in any case, if it were me, I would find a way to be by her side, no matter what. Because Su Tianquo understood very well that Sinyu's primary reason for agreeing to be with him was not the medical expenses, but that he had been by her side during her most painful time. That was the only trump card he could use to defeat Qin. Xiaohan said impatiently, "Why do you keep putting yourself in his shoes? Can't you put yourself in Qin's position?" Or his life was truly bitter, more bitter than bitterness, more bitter than poison. The investigator quickly responded Su Tianquo did indeed return to the country on July 13th, arriving on a private jet and landing at the airport at 8:19 a.m. Why did he lie? It's truly a headache. What's more headache-inducing is that, at this very moment, the family of Boss Sun caused a commotion at the police station. They claimed to be family, but in reality, they were his lovers, and not just one. Several women, heavily made up, rushed to the police station, demanding to see me. They questioned me. "How far have you investigated the case? Have you found the culprit yet? That scoundrel not only killed someone, but also took away all of Boss Sun's assets." At first, I thought one of Boss Sun's mistresses had secretly transferred it, but only after cross-referencing the accounts did I discover that all our money had vanished from our accounts. Officer Boss Sun was indeed not a good person, lustful and ill-tempered, but he was very generous with his money. Now that the person is gone, if even the money is gone, how are we supposed to live? We also have young children to raise. If you police officers can't find the killer, so be it, but you must find the money. They made a scene, causing me immense distress. After careful questioning, it was revealed that Boss Sun had a total of 5 lovers, all unmarried and maintaining only a romantic relationship with him. They were even aware of the existence of the others, but because he offered them substantial sums of money, they willingly accepted this arrangement of being one among many women, with 2 of them even bearing his children. Boss Sun used their personal information to open accounts at major banks, and all his income was transferred to these accounts in installments. Following the incident, we naturally investigated the bank account information of all the vehicle repair shop employees. The objective was to determine if this was a homicide motivated by financial disputes, but upon thorough investigation, no irregularities were found. It is true that they extorted money from others, but their financial transactions and account activities were meticulously organized and clean. It turned out that the shocking truth lay here. Wishing you all a pleasant day. I requested they maintain order and speak one by one. It was then revealed that on the very day the incident occurred, all the money in these mistresses' accounts had been transferred out. They stated that this situation occurred regularly, but it was related to his business dealings, which they did not understand and were not involved in. Thus they never inquired about it. Later, upon discovering he was deceased, they understood that the money was likely illicit and dared not cause a commotion. They assumed there might be an issue with their own accounts, perhaps that Boss Sun had transferred the funds to another mistress's account. During this period, they secretly compared their records and discovered that the money in everyone's account had been transferred out. Initially, they suspected each other of lying. But after careful deliberation, they concluded the money had indeed disappeared, leading them to report the matter to the police and cause a disturbance. However, Qin's accounts are undoubtedly clean. Nevertheless, the perpetrator would naturally not dare to use their real name. Qin, having lost the most important person in his life due to lack of funds, his desire for money is understandable. But with his exceptional skills and considerable income, was it worth risking it all for this paltry sum from Boss Sun? He is about to go to prison, and whether he can survive his sentence is still unknown. What else does he need money for? And Xinyu is with Su Tianquo, and they have more than enough money. They don't need his money. However, at this very moment, the case took a new turn. An old man led a sickly young boy into the police station, claiming to have a clue related to the headless murder case. The young boy's face was extremely pale, appearing to be gravely ill. The old man with a weathered face exclaimed, "I am from a nearby county. I want to see the police officer in charge of the headless murder case. I have a very important clue to provide." I hurried out to greet him. "Sir, I am Liang Chen, the police officer in charge of this case. What clue do you have?" We invited the old man and the boy in. Xiaohan asked with concern, "What's wrong with the boy?" The old man said, "He just had surgery not long ago." The old man carefully helped the young boy sit down, then sat himself and asked me, "Officer Liang, I heard people say that the culprit in the headless murder case is Dr. Qin Jun. Is that true?" "Who said that?" The old man replied, "That's what they're saying online. I haven't even issued a formal notice yet." Xiaohan leaned close to my ear and whispered, "The notice hasn't been issued, but the rumors have been circulating for a long time. It's unclear which media outlet published their speculation, and then the internet took it as fact. Sir, the case is still under investigation, and we have not yet confirmed the real culprit. Regardless of who it is, in short, it is definitely not Dr. Qin." I asked, "Why are you so sure? The incident occurred on July 13th, correct? It can only be said to have occurred around that date, as the corpse was not intact, and the forensic autopsy report could only estimate a time frame." Okay, but on July 13th, from around 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., Dr. Chun was with us the entire time. He was operating on my grandson. He was wearing a mask, so people in the hospital didn't recognize him. But I did. He is the surgeon I personally went to a major hospital to invite. The doctors at our small county-level hospital do not have such good skills, and we do not have much money to go to a major hospital. I saw online that he performed this surgery very skillfully, so I went to beg him to come here. Based on the forensic autopsy report and the clues discovered during the investigation, we estimate the victim's time of death to be between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. on July 13th. If what this old gentleman said is true, then Qin Jun had absolutely no time to commit the crime. The old gentleman grabbed my hand and said, "Dr. Qin is a good person. He performed the surgery for us free of charge without accepting any payment. His hospital has a rule that doctors are not allowed to perform surgeries outside independently. He risked being fired by the hospital to operate on us. He saved my grandson's life. How could he be a murderer?" "You are mistaken. You must be mistaken. Those people online are all talking nonsense. If you don't believe what we say, you can check the surveillance cameras in the operating room of our county hospital. Didn't you say there are cameras in the operating room? Even with a mask on, he should still be recognizable." Everyone was utterly astonished by this information and was momentarily at a loss for words to respond to the old gentleman. I initially thought that Qin Jun only wanted to protect his accomplishment, but it seems he is taking the blame for someone else. So, who is he taking the blame for? We cross-referenced this with the bank transfer records from the accounts of Boss Sun's mistresses. The time was between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. on July 13th. However, during this period, and Xin Yu had already left, and the dashcam footage can serve as evidence. And after entering the urban area, surveillance cameras did capture the vehicle, proving her statement to be accurate. As for Qin Jun, there is irrefutable evidence that he was in the operating room of the county hospital at the time. So, who transferred Boss Sun's money? The appearance of Boss Sun's mistresses and the two individuals from the county has completely overturned our previous investigation. The announcement cannot be made. Su Tianku was also summoned, just as in Sinayu was previously, and the media is already abuzz. In any case, if this matter involves the Suoshi group, the case will only attract more attention. It's likely that Suo Tianku has made behind the scenes arrangements, which is why it hasn't exploded online. And this time, even Su Tianku has been summoned. The media will have a field day with speculation, using the word suspected to spread all sorts of rumors. Consequently, the Suoshi group also became a trending topic. Su Tianku has been very cooperative. He explained his return to the country on July 13th via private jet. My original plan was indeed to return on July 14th, and I had already purchased the plane ticket. However, in the early morning of July 13th, Beijing time, I received a call from my father saying my mother was unhappy, which is why I had to return earlier by private jet. The reason I did not tell the truth during the initial interrogation is that my mother was not actually ill. She merely used that method to trick me into returning because she has always been trying to sabotage the relationship between myself and Enshinyu. For years, she has opposed me being with Enshinyu, let alone marrying her. It was only because I was too persistent that she reluctantly agreed. That morning, after returning home, I discovered she had arranged a blind date for me with a wealthy young lady. I was very angry and did not go to the meeting, instead sleeping at my parents' home to adjust to the time difference. Everyone in my family can testify to this. You may think my family is biased and lying for me, but I believe I am not obligated to prove my innocence. Sutienko asked, "What is the situation now? Does my little lie affect your case?" I curiously asked. "Every year, you accompany Ms. and to visit her mother's grave. This year, since you are back in the country, why didn't you think of going together? After all, you are officially engaged this year. You are considered the official son-in-law of Mother Anne. You should value it more than in previous years. It is true, but before we were engaged, I visited the grave with Enshinyu once during the Qingming festival. Moreover, I thought she and Qin Jun needed a private conversation. If I were there, they would never be able to resolve the knot in their hearts." His explanation seemed to have no flaws. I said, "We will verify everything that Director Suo has said. However, I hope that in the next stage, you will not hide anything further, otherwise, it will be obstruction of justice." This case was already very difficult to solve, and at this point, the details have become even more convoluted and obscure. This is the fourth interrogation of Qin Jun. It is said that he has been on a hunger strike for a whole day. Initially, the colleagues on guard did not notice anything, thinking it was just too hot or that he was upset and didn't want to eat. Later, they discovered he had not drunk any water either, and only then did everyone realize the seriousness of the situation. I asked, "What do you want to do?" "Committed suicide. Didn't you always fear the death penalty? Didn't you want to use these hands of yours to save people?" His attitude was very negative. He had never been detained for so long, and I realized how precious freedom is. Thinking about the rest of my life in prison, I felt bewildered and didn't want to eat. I have no intention of committing suicide. "All right, so before the interrogation, would you like to eat something?" He shook his head. "No, thank you. You have worked hard too, it's so hot, and you have to be busy with me every day. I feel very guilty. I won't waste your time anymore. Just give me some water to drink." Someone poured him water, and he drank it. Without waiting for me to speak, he asked first, "I thought the prosecutor's office would be interrogating me this time. Why is it still you? Are there any unresolved issues in the case?" "Go ahead and ask. We have already checked your and Enshinyu's call history and are at ease. After your breakup, you two had no contact until the day of the incident when you called each other once, correct?" "Yes, I assume you already know everything we said to each other quite clearly." "Definitely. Then I find it strange. How did you know she had an accident at the repair shop?" "Didn't I already say I saw her car in front of the repair shop?" "Is that so? Let me ask, if the hospital discovered you violated the contract and performed surgery without authorization, what consequences would you face?" Hearing my question, he flinched slightly but quickly regained his composure. "Termination, compensation, lawsuits? Is it that serious?" He remained silent. I emphasized, "From 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the day of the incident, you were in the operating room of the county hospital, and Shinyu's car left the repair shop before 12 p.m. How did you see Shinyu's car parked at the repair shop?" He still said nothing. I deliberately provoked him. "What's wrong? Didn't you say you'd say whatever you knew? Why are you silent now?" "Qin-jun, based on the evidence collected by the police, you absolutely had no time to commit the crime. You were only responsible for handling the body, weren't you? Then who actually killed him? Who are you protecting by confessing?" This time, Qin-jun finally spoke. He emphasized, "I killed him. I killed him alone. The murder, the burial, the disposal, the cleanup, I did it all myself. I deliberately said, but Nshinyu did not say that. As soon as he heard Nshinyu's name, he immediately lost his composition and agitatedly said, "What did you do to her? This has nothing to do with her. She is the victim. Please don't pressure her. She can't take it." I said, "She is calmer than you." She said, "Don't believe what she says. You must believe what I say. I killed him. Aren't you in a hurry to convict me? Can't you just convict me like this? Both of your testimonies contain lies, therefore, neither of your statements is credible. However, people can lie, but evidence cannot. Assuming you killed him after arriving at the scene, why was Boss Sun's body showing signs of arousal for 4 consecutive hours? Even steel would break. If you two still don't tell the truth, I will suspect whether this was a crime of passion or a premeditated murder, because your testimonies are completely inconsistent. Naturally, I had not yet received Nshinyu's interrogation transcript, so I didn't know what she would confess to Xiao Han. No, there was no premeditation. Qin Jun slammed his hands on the interrogation table. We have no grudge against them, so how could we have planned this? Ultimately, it was that scoundrel's lust and greed that led him astray. He made the mistake, so why should we be the ones to suffer? If there was no premeditation, then I am curious. You two only contacted each other once, and the conversation did not mention the repair shop. So how did you know Nshinyu had an incident at the repair shop? How could you rush to the repair shop immediately after finishing the surgery? I have held back from asking this question for a long time, because if I asked when he was calm, with his ability to react, he would surely come up with another excuse. With heightened emotions, his ability to react would surely be diminished. As expected, Qin Jun replied, "We just didn't use phones to communicate, but that doesn't mean we didn't have other ways to contact each other." I pressed on, "What other ways?" Qin Jun, having no other options, confessed it was through a game. "What game?" "An online mercenary game." I wasted. And Xinyu was playing too. That's how she managed to keep things from Su Tianko all this time. So for all these years, you two have been using this method to secretly communicate. So secretly, and using Su Tianko, right? Then it's really confusing. The previous testimony stated that because Su Tiankuo was overly suspicious, he refrained from contacting her, using that to prove the innocence between the two of you. So what does this mean now? I don't want to describe your relationship with Nshinyu as an affair. After all, they met first and fell in love first. Seeing that I remained silent, Qin Jun pressed, "What are you thinking about?" Thinking about whether our secret communication meant we were doing something illicit, something that couldn't be known by anyone, right? We didn't. Don't think of us as that sordid. Even if we did, besides, so what? Back then, he was the one who stole my lover. I spread my hands and asked, "So, what was the deal between the two of you? What was so secretive about it?" We just missed each other too much, wanted to hear each other's voices, and wanted to share our thoughts. I asked curiously, "Emotional infidelity?" If you want to put it that way, I can't deny it, but I don't see anything wrong with it. Su Tianko used money to provide for her material needs, while I used love to nourish her soul. We both got what we needed. I frowned, finding it difficult to comprehend. Isn't that a bit unfair to Director Suo? After all, he didn't force you two to break up. He got together with Nshinyu only after you and Nshinyu had already broken up. According to him, as long as they weren't married, it was still fair competition. If back then, he hadn't used his influence to find ways to send me away. How could I not have seen Mother and one last time? How could he have been with Nshinyu during the most difficult times? Didn't you go on a volunteer medical mission to the mountains with your professor that year? Didn't you volunteer to go to raise money for Nshinyu's mother's medical expenses? Could this also be a lie? Can these three people really not say a single truthful word? That's right, but don't you find it strange? Have you ever seen a medical student go on a volunteer medical mission with their professor? Have you ever seen a school offer such a high allowance for volunteer medical work? That was just a tactic he used to send me away. Then, if that's the case, why didn't Nshinyu break up with Su Tiankuo and get back with you? After all, love cannot be forced. right? Kinjun sighed. She said, "This is very good. Heavens, I never expected that solving a case would lead to such a subversion of my values. I have to get entangled in their messy love affairs." I asked, "What did Shinyu say to you through the game?" Initially, she called me through the game, but I was in surgery at the time and couldn't answer. Later, she left me several voice messages, crying and telling me that she had been assaulted at the auto repair shop and had killed someone. She was very scared. Then I called her back, but she didn't answer. So I quickly rushed to the auto repair shop. I asked in disbelief, "And Shinyu killed someone?" "She couldn't kill anyone, I did. When I arrived, they were still alive. I wanted to kill them." Suddenly, he leaned towards me and asked, "Are your forensic doctors reliable? If it weren't for that bastard's persistent state of arousal, I wouldn't have thought of taking such drastic action." I said, "So, when you arrived at the auto repair shop, they were all alive, including Boss Sun?" "Yes. Otherwise, how could I have viscerally felt the humiliation Shinyu suffered? I absolutely had to kill them." I pretended to be relieved. In fact, the forensic doctor can accurately determine the time of Boss Sun's death, confirming it was within 2 hours. He couldn't have possibly lived until 3 p.m. I smiled and said, "Dja, Kin, as expected, knows how to remain calm in any situation. You've fallen into my trap, haven't you?" Immediately, Jun's expression turned grim. I had people check if the server system of the game company recorded the chat content, and the answer was no. In other words, if they deleted the chat history, no one would know what they had actually said to each other in the game. However, the game system can record login times. On this point, Jun was not lying. Xiao Han excitedly reported to me that Shinyu had also revealed the crucial point. But unfortunately, in her previous statements, Shinyu always claimed that she was assaulted by Boss Sun, but it was not successful. This time, she admitted that she was indeed assaulted, but someone saved her while she was being assaulted. A person at the repair shop, while Boss Sun was attacking her, stabbed him in the heart with a file to save her. That's why she was able to escape the ordeal in the chaos. Who? She couldn't remember clearly, only that the person was wearing a repair shop uniform. I showed her photos of 8 deceased individuals in uniform, but she didn't recognize anyone. Did she mention how she contacted Jun? Xiao Han nodded, saying it was through a game. Have you ever played it? This game is primarily played by men. I rarely hear of women playing it. We compared the statements of the 2 individuals and found no contradictions. I sighed, thinking that their words are no longer trustworthy. Such a long time is enough for them to coordinate their statements. So, can Shinyu and Su Tiankuo be released? Their lawyers are starting to get restless. I thought for a moment and said, let's wait until the detention period expires. Go and question Suo Tiankuo again. Tell him about Jun and Shinyu contacting each other through the game and see how he reacts. I'm going. Xiao Han appeared extremely surprised. I asked, can't you do it? No, I'm just afraid I won't understand men's psychology and won't be able to extract any information. That's why I'm asking you to use a woman's perspective to judge him. I thought to myself, I should go and question Jinyu as well. And Jinyu looked extremely exhausted, her eyes void of any vitality. From the moment I entered, she exuded a sense of caution, though perhaps fear was the predominant emotion. I reassured her, don't be afraid. She quietly asked, can I ask a female officer to interrogate me? I continued to comfort her, rest assured. I will not ask you about matters you do not wish to discuss. No woman would want to recount being assaulted to a man. Only then did she seem slightly more at ease. I said, Kinjun mentioned that when you sent him a voice message through the game, you said you had killed someone. You killed him afterwards. She sniffed but did not reply. I continued, if a woman resists during an assault, it may be considered self-defense. The wound on the boss's heart was inflicted by you, wasn't it? And Jinyu shook her head. No, I didn't do it. Then who did? I don't know. I only remember he was an employee at the repair shop. I asked again, how many people work at the repair shop? Do you know? She still shook her head. I don't know. Then how many people did you see? It's been too long, I don't remember. You don't remember? This is something you wouldn't forget in a lifetime, right? I don't want to say it like this, but there's no other way. To me, they have been categorized as serious non-cooperative subjects. If we don't employ some stronger measures, I fear it will take until next year to uncover the truth. She looked up at me with a stubborn expression, even a hint of hatred in her eyes towards me. I don't want to say it, she whispered, tears suddenly streaming down her face. But Chin Jun has already confessed, although you two deleted your chat history in the game. Kim Jun said that your voice message contained the word murder. You committed murder, and out of fear, you called Chin Jun, a doctor, to help you clean up the mess, didn't you? She raised her hands in panic and asked, how could I possibly have the strength to kill someone? Then who did kill him? I said it was an employee at the repair shop, but I don't remember his face. At that time, I was too scared and panicked to even look at his face. All I could think about was escaping. My mental state had completely collapsed. I slammed my hand on the table too hard. You were in such a state of collapse, yet you could still drive for 3 hours. If you didn't kill him, what reason would Chin Jun have to destroy the evidence? Was it to protect that repair shop employee? And Jinyu began to cry even harder. The entire interrogation room was filled with her sobbing to the point of being deafening. I must admit, I couldn't maintain my composure, especially seeing her in such a pitiable state. I even felt I was being too harsh, cornering such a fragile woman. If she continues to cry like this, the interrogation cannot proceed. As I was leaving, Xiaohan also emerged from Suo Tianquo's interrogation room. She glanced at Jinyu inside and asked me, what did you say to make her like that? We walked out together. I didn't answer her. She handed me Suo Tianquo's statement and said, the CEO claims he knew about Chin Jun and Jinyu communicating through the game, but he chose to trust them. After all, if they truly wanted to be together, there was nothing he could do. He's quite sentimental, isn't he? Assuming the 3 of them committed the crime together, they would have had ample time to coordinate their statements. Therefore, the credibility of all 3 statements must be significantly reduced. We still need to find evidence to corroborate their accounts. I said, Xiaohan, let's reenact the scene where Jinyu was assaulted. The colleagues nearby were stunned. Xiaohan also flinched, then glared at me. Are you crazy? Don't make me hit you. Then she angrily quickened her pace. I knew she misunderstood me, so I hurried to explain. I'll play Jinyu, and you play Boss Sun. This time, even Xiaohan's face contorted. She said, are you obsessed with the case to the point of madness? Your condition is quite serious. I said, I want to know if the stab wound to his heart could have been inflicted by Jinyu while being assaulted. Her hand instinctively reached for a tool, and she stabbed him in the heart. Does that make sense? But the forensic report was very detailed. The wound was directed downwards. Just as we returned to the office, Xiaohan swept everything off a desk and laid down flat on it. Okay, you come here. I really wanted to reenact it. But with her acting like that, who would dare approach? She pretended to be assaulted, and during the struggle, her hand grabbed a pen and stabbed it upwards. As I leaned down, the pen left a mark on my shirt, pointing in the opposite direction of Boss Sun's wound. I pulled her up, lay on the desk myself, changed my grip on the pen, and deliberately stabbed downwards, leaving a mark on her shirt. Like this, is it possible? I asked. Xiaohan looked at the pen marks and gave me another look. The surrounding colleagues were dumbfounded, as the ink mark was right on Xiaohan's chest. Just then, the forensic doctor arrived. Seeing us like that, he said, shouldn't you be asking me about this? I have reason to suspect you two are mixing personal matters with official duties. I stood up and said, please don't joke like that. It's fine for me, but Xiaohan is a woman. When solving cases, you didn't treat her like a woman, he retorted. The forensic doctor took the pen and pointed at Xiaohan's chest, saying, this scenario is indeed possible. However, the angle would be different. The height difference between men and women, and their strength, are also different. Based on the wound's trajectory, it must have been inflicted by a man taller than Boss Sun, stabbing downwards while standing, and Jinyu is unlikely to be the perpetrator. I sighed. This case has greatly affected the victim, so her reluctance to report to the police and her destruction of evidence are understandable. Forcing her to recall the assault is indeed cruel, but what's the logic here? If Jinyu was purely a victim, what reason would Qin Jun have to destroy evidence of murder? He would have a motive to kill for Jinyu. Any man would harbor murderous intent towards the scoundrel who assaulted the woman he loves. But if he didn't kill the person, why would he get involved in this murky situation? All direct evidence of the crime has been destroyed. The testimonies of those involved are consistently filled with lies. This case is truly too difficult. They provided us with crucial information. A colleague from the Economic Investigation Department told me, after receiving your information, we investigated all accounts of Boss Sun and his lover overnight. The money in their accounts on the day of the incident was transferred to a virtual account, and that same night, it flowed into a money laundering operation. Hearing this, I widened my eyes. Although I wasn't in charge of this network, I knew that once money entered a money laundering operation, it couldn't be traced in a day or two. The colleague then excitedly said, "But guess what? That same evening, someone withdrew 500 yuan in cash from an active bank card. The surveillance camera captured it. Did it capture his face?" I asked excitedly. He replied, "That's impossible. He knew what he was doing, so why would he reveal his face? He was fully clad in black with a hat and mask. Even his eyes were disguised. The video only shows his silhouette." Seeing my disappointment, he added enthusiastically, "But heaven helped you. One ATM was unresponsive. He hit the machine a few times. My heart skipped a beat. Did it leave fingerprints?" I asked. "How could it? He's a professional. He was wearing gloves, but there was a small sharp corner on the ATM that tore his glove, leaving a tiny bit of blood," he said excitedly. "The net of justice is vast, though its mesh is fine. Escape is impossible. With this method, the suspect is a repeat offender and can definitely be found in the database." As expected, the DNA comparison yielded results very quickly, perfectly matching an economic fraudster named Lu Xiao, who had been released from prison just 3 months prior. Lu Xiao, 32 years old. He is 1.85 meters tall and quite handsome. Over 10 years ago, after dropping out of junior high, he relied on his good looks to scam women out of money. After reaching adulthood, perhaps his ambitions grew, and he began posing as a wealthy young master, enticing small companies to invest so he could defraud them, causing the company owners to lose everything. He was arrested 8 years ago. Due to the large amount of money defrauded, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He served his time well and was released in April of this year. According to one of Boss Sun's lovers, he once brought Lu Xiao home for a meal, and the two seemed to be acquainted. He had mentioned wanting to work at the auto repair shop, but Boss Sun refused, saying he had other work for him. He chuckled mysteriously, and no one knew what else was going on. Wishing everyone a good day, Xiao Han showed Jinyu Lu Xiao's photo for identification. Among many pictures, she pointed out Lu Xiao. This suggests that when Jinyu was assaulted, it was Lu Xiao who stabbed Boss Sun in the heart with a file to save her. Afterward, Lu Xiao murdered the remaining people at the auto repair shop and then absconded with all of Boss Sun's assets. Some say that, although Lu Xiao lived by fraud, he was skilled in martial arts. It is rumored that he was a mischievous child who grew up in a martial arts school, making it plausible that he could single-handedly overpower 8 men, far exceeding Qin Jun's capabilities. I asked. After his release from prison, the detention center should have been monitoring him. Who investigated this matter? Please report the situation. A colleague replied that the detention center stated that the individual lost contact immediately after his release as he was not a local. Therefore, they had requested the Household Registration Authority to be responsible for monitoring him. But since he did not return to his hometown, they were unable to track him. Moreover, he might have planned something, which is why he concealed his identity so meticulously. Of course, it's also possible that he was imprisoned for too long and is unaware of the outside world, essentially not using any online accounts. making his post-release activities nearly untraceable. I've never handled such a complex case. It feels like a large portion of my brain cells have died. I said, for now, let's issue a warrant for his arrest on charges of illegal property appropriation. Once we apprehend him, we can proceed. Xiaohan replied, this is likely very difficult. The incident occurred over half a month ago, and given the mindset of a professional fraudster like him, it's highly probable he has already fled the country. Everyone looked at my expression. Yes, the developments in this case are truly unpredictable. The current issue is Qin Jun did not commit murder, so why did he destroy the murder weapon? And why did he confess? It seems the final answer can only be found with Qin Jun himself. Qin Jun looked visibly haggard. Unpretentiously, half of his hair had turned gray. He insisted, I killed him alone. I destroyed the murder weapon, buried the body, and cleaned up the evidence all by myself. Please believe me, it was truly me. Will you only believe me when I'm dead? I looked at him silently for a moment, and then said, The money boss' son deposited with his lovers has all been transferred. If he were still alive, no one could have transferred his money. Only after his death could the other party control his phone, and only someone familiar with him would know where he kept his money and what his password was. Do you know boss' son? Do you know how many lovers he had? These words were perhaps something Qin Jun never expected to hear. His expression was one of extreme shock. He asked, What do you mean? When you had the body, didn't you also handle boss' son's phone and the others? He replied, The phone was smashed and thrown into the water along with the murder weapon. You said you killed the person and handled the phone? So how could the money have been transferred? He coughed lightly. Furthermore, the police have identified the person who transferred the money. I truly cannot understand it. I asked Qin Jun, what exactly is the reason you insist on admitting to the murder? Or do you believe Shinyu killed those people? I continued, you are also highly educated. You are fully capable of judging that Shinyu is fundamentally incapable of murder. So, who exactly are you confessing for? He insisted, I am not confessing for anyone. It was truly me. Your persistence is futile. Without sufficient evidence, even if you were the real killer, you could not be convicted. However, the matter of you destroying the murder weapon is as clear as daylight. The police will forward this part to the prosecutor's office. After the prosecutor's office reviews it, they will indict you for desecration of a corpse and destruction of evidence. As for the murder charge, we can only wait for the police to apprehend the perpetrator before proceeding. Qin Jun seemed unable to accept this, even bursting into tears. During previous interrogations, he had also cried, but this time was different. His expression now seemed more anguished than death itself. When I stood up to leave, he spoke. Don't arrest that person. He hesitated. He took the video. Those scoundrels used a camera to record Xinyu, and that person took the camera away. I looked up at him. If this was an act, his acting skills could be considered divine. I rushed there in such a hurry, only to retrieve the video. However, all I saw was a ground littered with corpses. I searched the entire repair shop, but could not find the camera. It must have been taken by that man. He pleaded with me, Officer, please, just say I killed the person. After all, you need to solve the case. You need to provide an explanation to the public. You need to maintain order and protect citizens. I just want to protect the woman I love. As long as you don't arrest him, he will not release the video online once he sees that I have confessed for him. Even if Suo Tianko no longer wants her, she can still have a way to live. But once the video is released, she will have no path but death. She is the victim. Why should she die? He buried his face in his hands. My only wish in this life has been for her to live well. She said she wanted to be with Su Tiankuo, so I let her be with Su Tiankuo. She said Su Tiankuo was too busy and she was lonely, so I stayed to chat and comfort her. She said we couldn't be lovers, but we could be siblings, so I became her brother. I only hoped to protect her silently forever. But why did I let her bear such a heavy burden of sin? Why did I not dare to contact her or meet her openly? She no longer has any love for me. It is I, It is I who cannot turn love into familial affection. It is the demon in my heart that makes me afraid to be alone with her. If possible, Chunjin truly wished he could kneel before me. I never expected the truth of the case to be like this. Assaulting a woman and recording the entire process. This video, which should have been irrefutable evidence to convict the rapist, has instead become a tool to blackmail the victim. At this stage of the investigation, if Lu Xiao cannot be apprehended, the case cannot proceed. However, there is currently no direct evidence proving Lu Xiao is the murderer. Thus, a murder warrant cannot be issued, and the chances of apprehending him are very low. It could be 3 to 5 months, or 3 to 5 years, or even 8 to 10 years. Well, there are plenty of unsolved cases piled up in the old file room. If this case truly cannot be solved, we will have to accept it. For this matter, we specially convened a large meeting attended by leaders of progressively higher ranks. The bureau chief could only sit in a small corner seat. Finally, a high-ranking official slammed the table and made a decision acknowledging the hard work of the comrades. We all understand that the truth should have been announced. As soon as I heard the words "should have been," I knew the announcement would not reflect the truth. Su Tianquo's father, Mr. Suo, specially met with several leaders to discuss the matter. The reputation of the Suo Shi conglomerate is of immense value. In this incident, and Xinyu is also a primary victim. They hope that the announcement will not mention Xinyu being assaulted. The leader explained that firstly, the contributions of the Suo group to this city are obvious to all, and secondly, this is also their reasonable request. Once the case of the headless body is clearly investigated and found to be unrelated to Xinyu and Su Tianquo, the police are also obligated to protect citizens' privacy. The comrade in charge of writing the press release must put in some effort, both to clarify the incident and to protect the privacy of the victim. We thought so too, but if Xinyu's situation is not clarified, Qin Jun's act of destroying the body completely lacks motivation. Well, since the leadership has spoken, we can only comply. In the written statement, it was only stated that Lu Xiao intentionally injured Boss Sun and transferred his assets, and that Qin Jun destroyed the body and evidence. Then it stated that the case is currently at a standstill regarding Lu Xiao, and called on the public to provide information related to Lu Xiao so that the police could apprehend him quickly. And during the press conference, will any reporter ask why Qin Jun destroyed the body and evidence? The police will use the reason that the case has not been fully investigated and clarified, and cannot be disclosed to the public for the time being, or will directly refuse to comment. Qin Jun still has a good reputation and is well respected in the medical community, and many people do not want to believe that he is involved in the case. In addition, the police's apparent avoidance of topics related to the Suo group and Xinyu, the media again raised suspicions as to whether there was some collusion between the Suo group and the police, and whether the police were covering up. However, such arguments were quickly suppressed. Perhaps this is the power of the Suo group's wealth. Although the police statement was questioned, it still carried weight, and finally, the matter was temporarily closed. But we will continue to follow the subsequent pursuit of Lu Xiao. As for Qin Jun, he will face charges of desecrating a corpse and destroying evidence, with a combined sentence estimated to be between 3 to 5 years imprisonment. When Xinyu left the police station, she asked me if she could visit Qin Jun now. It is possible, but the two of you still cannot meet privately. A police officer will be present, and the content of your conversation will be recorded. And Xinyu looked at Qin Jun's hair, which was more than half gray, and tears involuntarily fell. She raised her hand and gently stroked her hair, seemingly having nothing more to say, only managing to utter, "Thank you. You have lived for me for so many years. From now on, you must live for yourself." After Xinyu left, how heartbroken Qin Jun was, perhaps everyone could imagine. Fortunately, the police department did not abandon Xinyu because of this incident and continued to treat her as usual. The investigation phase of the headless body case concludes here. Ultimately, all the case details, documents, evidence, confessions, etc. will be packaged, organized into files, and then shelved in a corner, awaiting an unknown date to be reopened. After that, Captain Liang is in a bad mood because he couldn't solve the case, right? Seeing me distracted, Xiaohan didn't tease him. Losing the first class merit, the bonus, and the holiday is already miserable enough. You can't mope around like this. Losing your mind and your spirit. To be honest, I've been a criminal police officer for 8 years, and this is the first time I haven't solved a case. What's frustrating is that this case happened even with a confession. I truly feel a bit defeated. I pondered for a moment and asked, what if Qin Jun hadn't confessed? With such importance placed on it by superiors and so much manpower and resources expended, even if he hadn't confessed, we would still have found him. It was only a matter of time, Xiaohan said. On the other hand, if the flood hadn't washed the head ashore, the victim couldn't have been found so quickly. If more time had passed, the surveillance footage from passing vehicles would have been overwritten, and witnesses would not have remembered the situation clearly. If those unrevealed pieces of evidence are completely dealt with, this case will have no clues to begin with. Xiaohan reassured me. This case indeed has many doubts, but the principle is the presumption of innocence. No matter how many suspicious points there are, without evidence, we cannot proceed. We can only hope that the economic investigation team tries harder and soon finds Lu Xiao's whereabouts. Don't you think Lu Xiao's act of smashing the ATM was very foolish? I asked. Firstly, smashing the ATM does not necessarily mean it can be repaired. Secondly, smashing it loudly would attract others' attention. Moreover, there were other ATMs nearby. He could have just used another one. Finally, he was so well prepared. Why would he leave behind DNA? I guess, is it possible that the person was not Lu Xiao at all, and the purpose of doing so was to deliberately leave Lu Xiao's DNA, causing the police to focus their investigation on Lu Xiao? Then who is he? Xiaohan asked. Qin Jun. Impossible. He should have been burying the body at that time. Of course. Without evidence, all this is just speculation. All we can do is find Lu Xiao quickly, but this person has disappeared without a trace, with no news at all. Colleagues in other areas have cracked down on some illegal cross-border organizations, but they have not obtained anything. The economic investigation team has also made no new progress. I cannot help but suspect that Lu Xiao is actually dead, but this answer still needs to be confirmed with Qin Jun. I visited him at the detention center. His condition was much better than when he was in the interrogation room. His hair was shaved, the gray streaks gone. In fact, his spirit seemed better. I only heard that he was not talkative and always kept to himself. Su Tiankuo and Ensinyu requested to meet him, but were both denied. Seeing me, he asked in surprise, "Hasn't this case been transferred to the prosecutor's office already? Why is the police still here?" I lied to him, saying, "We've found Lu Xiao's whereabouts." I observed his expression. He asked doubtfully, "Really?" He tried to force a look of joyous surprise. But micro-expressions are hard to hide. True astonishment should not look like that, while the joy seemed genuine. I had considered having him take a polygraph test. But what if everything he said was a lie? Then the polygraph would be useless, because he himself believed that was the truth. But we haven't apprehended him yet. We only found his recent area of operation by tracing the money. He didn't answer. I asked, "You think if the police arrest him, he'll release Shinyu's video, right?" He looked up at me and said helplessly, "Everything is beyond my control now. I just hope he has some conscience. At least he saved Shinyu from that scoundrel." "Actually, you've been leading me to investigate Boss Sun's lovers all along, haven't you?" This time, surprisingly, was evident in his eyes. "In your statement, you repeatedly mentioned 2,000 yuan. At the time, I thought this sum was insignificant. Furthermore, Boss Sun's financial situation was thoroughly investigated and found to be without issues, so it was dismissed. Ms. And also deliberately reminded me that your legs were afflicted with rheumatism, making an 8-to-1 confrontation nearly impossible. Once the perpetrator was identified, Boss Sun's lovers appeared, followed by the witnesses from the county. You were guiding the police step by step to investigate Lu Xiao, weren't you?" You and Shin did not kill anyone, and the police have no evidence to prove that he was at the repair shop that day. Therefore, the police will inevitably focus on Liu Xiao. As long as Liu Xiao is not found, the headless body case cannot proceed. As for you, destroying the body or covering up traces would only take 3-5 years. Compared to murder, this is a bargain. Qin Jun tried to maintain a calm expression, but his hands showed slight tremors. He said, "I don't understand what you're talking about." I pointed at him and said, "If I were you, I would have set the entire repair shop on fire. With enough gasoline, no matter how many fire-fighting equipment were mobilized. What would likely be found are just charred remains, bloodstains, and traces would all turn to ash. Even if the corpse could be identified as murdered, the evidence would be more thoroughly destroyed than by your method. Next, the police will check surveillance cameras and investigate Boss Sun's financial situation, although they might also summon you for questioning. Gradually, this goes in a direction that would not have prevented the police from intervening from the start. I didn't think about setting fire to destroy the body." Qin Jun said, "I didn't think that far. How could that be? How difficult is it to dispose of evidence? I know better than you. When you cut off the head, when you sat on the ground and wiped the bloodstains again and again, when you thought about where else you might have left traces, didn't you think of setting a fire to finish it all? Digging such a large hole alone, dragging so many dead bodies into and out of the car alone, cleaning up the traces again and again alone. Aren't you tired? Moreover, before the footage even started to be a threat, you had already put yourselves in a vulnerable position. If it were me, I would be desperate to find the footage and get the camera back, not help someone cover things up. And certainly the footage without the camera has no value." Qin Jun asked me, "Then what does Officer Liang think is the reason?" "Because setting a fire would immediately alert the police to the case." I stared into his eyes and deduced, this murder case. You and Xinyu and Su Tianku were all involved, weren't you? You needed enough time to destroy the evidence. So taking a detour couldn't have prevented the police from intervening from the start. Besides those bodies, besides the traces at the repair shop, you left behind more damning evidence. Concealing a murder, you can delay it day by day. This time, Qin Jun dared not answer my question, only stating plainly, "I don't understand what you're talking about. Liu Xiao is dead, isn't he? He killed the people at the repair shop, but you killed him." Qin Jun repeated, "I don't understand what you're talking about. On July 13th, Su Tianku also went to the repair shop. I personally reviewed all the useful videos found. And Xinyu drove Su Tianku's car, and due to the car's speed, the dashcam recorded her voice. But in the dashcam footage before the car went onto the highway, there was no voice of Xinyu among all the dashcam footage that recorded her voice. In all the vehicle surveillance cameras found, there was no video that could show the driver. The driver who went to the repair shop is not necessarily Xinyu. But Su Tianku was a former professional racer. His driving speed could not possibly be 50 kilometers per hour. I am a man, I also drive. I understand the feeling of driving. Driving slowly is a torture for a man who likes to drive, who likes strong sensations. If the driver were Su Tianku, he could never tolerate driving at such a low speed. Then there's only one possibility: the car was modified, and its top speed is only 50 km/h. This is the car Su Tianku especially modified for Xinyu, isn't it? Qin Jun gave a cold laugh. How would I know? You should ask them about this. I didn't respond to him and continued. And Xinyu arrived at the repair shop early in the morning, and Su Tianku flew back from abroad specifically to follow after her. He saw someone assaulting Xinyu, and he killed the person, right? Qin Jun said, I don't know. At that time, I was in the operating room in the county. I went along with him. Okay, but I can't figure it out. What connection did Xinyu have with the people at the repair shop? How did she get to the repair shop that day? Qin Jun, on a rare occasion, advised me, if you can't figure it out, then don't. There are many unsolved cases in the world. Detective Liang, don't make things difficult for yourself. You've already done a great job. I was provoked by this statement, but I thought, I'm not solving cases to prove how capable I am, but to pursue the truth. No crime should be concealed, and all truth should be revealed to everyone, I asked Qin-jun. Is it really worth it to trade 5 years of your youth for a lifetime of peace and happiness for Ensinyu and Suo Tianquo? This matter originally had nothing to do with you. But in the end, you were the only one who went to prison. You originally had a bright future. Do you really want to bury yourself in the shadows forever for others? Bright future. Qin-jun rarely showed a serene smile. Detective Liang, my bright future was extinguished forever the moment at Mother N's funeral that year. When she told me she had decided to stay with the CEO, it's normal for cases to stall and hit dead ends when all leads are severed. Sometimes it requires a long wait, but sometimes it also requires bold speculation. When I hypothesize that Liu Xiao is dead, the line of thinking will be completely different. A living person whose whereabouts cannot be found proves that he is deliberately hiding. And a dead person whose whereabouts cannot be found proves that someone is deliberately concealing it. The lovers of Boss Sun are certainly more eager to find Liu Xiao than I am. Therefore, as soon as there is any movement, they will disregard rules and come straight to me. Whether Boss Sun is dead or not may not significantly affect them, but the loss of his money will affect their entire lives and future generations. Previously, they did not expose his illegal activities because they worried that even if he died, the law would confiscate his illicit income. But now that the money is gone, they have nothing left to hide. They said the main source of income for Boss Sun was not car repair, but usury. In fact, Boss Sun had been in this business for over a decade, not just a day or two, which is why he had the money to support so many lovers and illegitimate children. However, in recent years, major platforms have strongly promoted low interest, easy to obtain loans. Consequently, those in need of funds no longer have to rely on their channels as before. Thus, their business has declined significantly. But those who previously borrowed money are still under their control. After all, borrowing money from them is not as simple as just signing a name. Collateral is required, along with exorbitant interest rates, and some may never be able to repay it in their lifetime. Following this lead, I decided to investigate the financial situation of Qin-jun and Ensinyu in reverse. After all, just because they are not short of money now does not mean they were not short of money before. And the time they were most in need of money was 10 years ago, when Mother Ann was seriously ill. I went to the hospital. The records showed that late-stage stomach cancer that year essentially meant a predetermined death date. However, family members cannot stand by and watch their loved ones pass away, so they try every means to prolong the patient's life and alleviate their suffering. A single painkiller injection costs several thousand yuan, and several injections might be needed per day. The N family was not wealthy to begin with, and they also had to support Qin-jun. The parents' salaries were just enough for basic living expenses. After the father passed away, a mother and single-handedly raised 2 university students, one of whom was a medical student, so the financial pressure can be imagined. Therefore, when Qin-jun and Ensinyu were in university, their family home was sold. Mother Ann moved to the city with the 2 of them, finding a meager income as a hotel cleaner. Fortunately, Qin-jun and Ensinyu were both ambitious, admitted to good universities with low tuition fees, and possessed good character and excellent academic performance. Every year, they received scholarships, and Qin-jun also received state orphan allowances, etc. Life was relatively stable. Mother Ann probably only hoped that her 2 children would graduate from university and naturally get married and have children, and then the lives of the 3 would get better and better. Who knew fate would not allow it? Therefore, during the period when Mother Ann was ill, money was extremely important. But in the early stages, Su Tianquo did not allow Ensinyu to borrow money. So where did that money come from? Even with Qin-jun's charity medical examinations plus Ensinyu's salary, it was just a drop in the bucket, not nearly enough. The only possibility is that they resorted to loan sharks. But it has been a long time, and this matter is very difficult to investigate. I can only go to prison to find information. After all, most of the loan sharks back then ended up in jail. Unexpectedly, I actually found someone, a former loan shark who said he had an impression. I showed the man a 10-year-old photo of Nzinyu, and he immediately excitedly pointed at the photo and said, "I have an impression. I have an impression. Such a beautiful girl, no one could forget her." Borrowed from us using compromising photos as collateral. I asked in surprise, using compromising photos, what does that mean? He was embarrassed to speak and could only gesture with his actions, and I immediately understood. Online loans within universities at that time had already pushed many female students to their deaths, precisely because they had to take compromising photos to receive the money. If they could not repay by the deadline, these photos would be made public. Many girls could not bear the consequences, so when they could no longer bear the burden, they sought death. Has the money been paid? Yes, both principal and interest, 250,000. Around when? He said within a month, around the time after Mother Ann passed away. Then this money was likely facilitated by Suo Tianquo, and Nshinyu paid it with peace of mind. What about the photos? According to the rules, we couldn't let her off the hook so easily. But at that time, someone influential intervened to help her, so we didn't dare to do anything. Someone influential. Who? I don't know who was behind it specifically, but the person who intervened was a powerful figure who monopolized the sand market back then, with immense influence. We didn't dare to touch him, but he was later executed for organized crime. Susha Group's rise in real estate was likely due to Suo Tianquo's connections. I showed him a photo of Suo Tianquo, asking if he recognized him. He pointed at the photo and said, Isn't this the person who used to work for us?" He was a subordinate back then, but he wasn't particularly prominent. Because of his surname, we called him by a nickname, and that's how I remembered him. He looked refined, like a smiling tiger. After I was arrested, I don't know where he went. I asked, "Have you destroyed all of Njinyu's photos?" He hesitated and said, "They were destroyed in front of the boss, but she was so beautiful, I secretly kept 2 to relieve myself. Does boss' son have a chance to get those photos?" "Wishing you a good day," he said. "I don't know about that, but after I was arrested, I couldn't control these things anymore." He asked, "Have those photos been leaked?" "This has nothing to do with me. I behaved very well in prison." Hearing these words, I dared not think further. It seems this is very likely a significant development. But it's not to the extent that Suo Tianquo would resort to such means to resolve this matter. It is highly likely that Njinyu wanted to resolve it herself, which led to this incident, which could explain why Qin Jun insisted on intervening to clean up the mess. And Shinyu, besides, there is no one else worth him doing this for. Those cameras or videos, there's no need to go to such lengths. Assuming Lu Xiao really got that thing, then the purpose would be to threaten Nzinyu. If he wanted to threaten her, he would certainly not release it before negotiations, because once released, he would not be able to gain any benefits. I was considering whether to summon Nzinyu and Suo Tianquo again, when at this very moment, I discovered they were preparing to go abroad. It is normal for people like them to travel abroad frequently due to work requirements. But going abroad at this crucial juncture, I believe it is necessary to stop them. He led people to the airport to intercept the 2 of them. Su Tianquo was very calm when he saw us and asked, "Officer Liang, is there anything you need us to help with?" I asked, "Why is Director Su going abroad at this time?" He put his arm around Nzinyu and smiled, saying we have set the wedding date, and the ceremony is planned to be held on a small island abroad. So we are going there in advance to arrange the wedding affairs. "Congratulations! Congratulations!" And Shinyu asked, "Is the case of Qin Jun about being tried? Do you need us to provide assistance?" I replied, "No. We have obtained some new information and require your assistance in the investigation." Su Tianquo asked, "Have you caught Lu Xiao?" I moved for them to accompany us, saying, "We can discuss these matters back at the police station." Su Tianquo said, "All right, I will call someone to handle our luggage." He knew I would be wary, so he made the call on speakerphone. He told his assistant, We have some urgent matters to attend today, so our schedule is cancelled. Please have someone take our checked luggage home first. His assistant asked, Director Suo, do we need to change the flight tickets? No need. The assistant then asked, oh, right, Director Suo. The Corporate Communications Department is inquiring about the date of your wedding announcement. Can it be postponed for a day or two? The chairman sighed. Su Tiankuo covered the phone and asked me, may I turn off the speakerphone now? I nodded. He then turned off the speakerphone and continued. This matter will proceed according to my plan. I will explain to the chairman's side. After that, he seemed to have something else to discuss, so we might need to wait a moment. And Xinyu turned to Xiao Han and said, Officer Xiao, my throat is a bit uncomfortable. Could you go buy me a cold drink? The air conditioning in this airport is not very good. Although there is air conditioning everywhere, the room temperature is still quite high. Su Tiankuo seems to be encountering obstacles regarding his marriage. Listening to his conversation, his father is trying every means to obstruct it, even going over his head to instruct the relevant personnel in the company. He is trying to argue. Perhaps not wanting me to wait long, he stated firmly, I will decide my own matters. No one is allowed to overrule me and make decisions. Then he hung up and turned to apologize to me. I'm sorry for making you wait. And at this very moment, his expression suddenly changed, and he shouted, Don't let her drink it. She's allergic to mangoes. I followed his gaze and saw Xinyu gulping down a glass of mango juice. Hearing Su Tiankuo's words, Xiao Han immediately stopped her, flicking away the mango juice cup from Xinyu's hand. Meaning it was too late too. Thirds of that large cup of mango juice had already gone down, and Xinyu immediately had difficulty breathing. Su Tiankuo rushed over, supporting her as she swayed unsteadily, and shouted frantically, Ambulance. Call an ambulance. No one expected things to escalate like this. In the ambulance, Xinyu was already wearing an oxygen mask, but still couldn't breathe normally. Swelling on her neck was visible to the naked eye. Upon arrival at the emergency room, her condition was extremely critical. Of various common allergy medications and treatments could not alleviate her symptoms. The doctor said, a simple allergy is not frightening. What's frightening is that her allergic reaction causes swelling of the respiratory tract, leading to mechanical obstruction of the larynx, and consequently, severe difficulty breathing. The current situation is that only an emergency tracheotomy can be performed to help her breathing. Su Tiankuo hurriedly said, Then do it. Please find the best doctor and use the best medicine. Because the doctor found it difficult to explain, he said, a standard tracheotomy is not difficult, but the challenge is that Ms. and has undergone this surgery multiple times before. The surgical technique required is very high. I fear our hospital does not have any doctor capable of performing it. Su Tiankuo grabbed me and said, Qin Jun can do it. He can do it. Let him perform the surgery. How can we get him to perform the surgery? Police officer, I beg you. Lu Xiao was killed by me. I can confess, I can plead guilty. Please let Qin Jun perform the surgery for her. Human life is paramount. I didn't have time to consider if it was protocol or not. I directly called the person in charge at the detention center. He demanded I have superior orders. I told him I would bear all consequences. About half an hour later, the detention center's vehicle brought Qin Jun. However, his situation was rather special. A police officer had to be present while he operated. I entered the operating room with him. Qin Jun raised the surgical scalpel, looked at Xinyu, who was struggling to breathe on the operating table, and hesitated to make the incision. The doctor beside him reminded him, Dr. Qin, the patient is in critical condition. Qin Jun looked into Xinyu's eyes, then removed her oxygen mask, gently stroked the stray hair on her forehead, gave her a light kiss, and said, It's not your fault. Heaven is too unfair. Heaven is blind. It helped them but not us. Don't be afraid, I'm here. I'll always be here. I felt something was wrong with his words. As I was about to step closer, I saw the surgical scalpel in Qin Jun's hand plunge directly into his own throat. Without a moment's hesitation, without any sign of doubt, in that moment, Xinyu also stopped breathing, At that moment, I felt as if the entire operating room was spinning. Everyone was so shocked by the scene that they didn't know how to react. The nearby doctors, one rushed to bandage Chin Jun's bleeding wound, another hurried to provide emergency care for Shin-yu. However, all efforts were in vain. Kim Jun, worthy of being called the genius surgeon of the medical field, knew Shin-yu could not be saved. He also knew precisely and quickly how to end his own life. When everything finally stopped, everyone was truly plunged into extreme sorrow. Su Tianko pounded on the operating room door, sobbing multiple times, unable to stand steady. I was also still in shock, never imagining things would turn out this way. I even felt immense regret and self-blame. If I hadn't continued the investigation, if I hadn't stopped them at the airport, would all of this have happened? For the first time, I seriously doubted my profession. Was I doing the right thing? Was the truth really that important? Should I dissect the truth layer by layer for the deaths of these scums? I raised my hands, feeling them covered in blood. I didn't fire a shot, nor did I lay a hand on anyone, yet two lives vanished before my eyes. In the interrogation room, Director Suo sat opposite me and recounted the events leading to the incident. After our engagement, Shin-yu's behavior became somewhat strange. I always felt she was hiding a secret she didn't want me to know. At the same time, she started spending money, which was unusual. We had been together for 10 years, and she had never actively spent my money. She never accepted expensive gifts I gave her, which is why the cars she drove were all registered under my name. I gave her credit cards with high limits and a joint checking account, but she never used them. Initially, I thought perhaps because we were engaged and our status was settled, she no longer distinguished between us financially. But very soon after, I discovered she wasn't using that money for personal expenses, but was converting it all to cash. I also secretly investigated her bank accounts and found that her salary was gone. My secretary's salary is not low, yet she didn't spend much. Over the years, the balance in her salary account was never small. Her sudden change made me suspect this might be related to Kim Jun. Kim Jun, besides, one else was worth her expending so much effort for. However, with Kim Jun's current achievements, he doesn't lack money. It is true that I needed to go abroad for work during that period and did not expect to return home any earlier. It was actually my mother who used illness as an excuse to disappoint me. After returning home, seeing she was fine, I intended to go back to my residence and accompany Shin-yu to the county. However, my mother had made prior arrangements to keep me at home. She had people watching over me and confiscated my phone. I had to climb over the wall to get out, then took a taxi back to my residence. I saw the car Shin-yu usually drove was still there and assumed she hadn't left. But the housekeeper told me a car had picked her up early that morning. I thought it was Kim Jun. So I wanted to drive over there immediately. But my car, along with the driver who had picked me up and taken me to my parents' house, was being held there. I could only drive the car Shin-yu usually drove. She was shy and not good with directions. Afraid of driving and worried about accidents, I had someone modify the car, limiting its speed to 50 kilometers per hour. Therefore, I could only take the national highway. I was completely unfamiliar with that road, which led to the tire blowout. My original intention was to go to a repair shop to fix it. I never expected Shin-yu to be inside, although a closed sign was hung outside and all 3 roller shutters were down. The car truly couldn't run anymore. I didn't have a phone, so I could only try my luck there, see if anyone was inside, and borrow a phone to call for roadside assistance. As I got closer, I faintly heard Shin-yu's pained cries. I didn't care about anything else and directly drove the car through a door. What met my eyes was a corpse scattered across the floor. I saw a man assaulting Shin-yu. At that moment, I couldn't think straight anymore. I saw a hammer on the ground, picked it up, and struck him directly on the head. One blow wasn't enough. I struck him several more times. He died just like that, and Shin-yu looked at me, completely astonished. After committing murder, I was also in a state of extreme distress. There were so many corpses on the floor, and Shin-yu tearfully apologized to me, saying, "Forgive me, it's all my fault. Please go quickly. Just pretend you never came back. These people were all killed by me, but she clearly wasn't capable of killing anyone. Under my persistent questioning, she finally told me that to pay for her mother's medical expenses that year, she had no choice but to borrow money online. She thought that once the money was repaid and the photos were destroyed, everything would be fine. However, she never expected that after so many years, someone would use those photos to threaten her. About half a year ago, someone took advantage of her drinking coffee to place her old photos at the bottom of the coffee cup and began demanding money. Initially, the amounts were small, $30,000, $40,000. But after we got engaged, the person learned she was my fiancée and began employing increasingly aggressive tactics. The demands increased with each subsequent request, and each time, they insisted on cash. The most recent demand was for $5 million. $5 million is not a large sum for us, but $5 million in cash would require even me some time to arrange. She was completely at a loss. She didn't dare tell me, nor could she tell anyone else. It was at this moment that Lu Xiao appeared. He said he could help her. Lu Xiao was the person sent by the blackmailer to collect the money. However, he claimed to also despise the blackmailer's actions, stating that those who bully women do not die a good death. At the same time, he also told Xinyu about his own circumstances. He said he had just been released from prison and urgently needed a sum of money to go abroad. Xinyu cried, saying, "I've already given him all my money. I truly have no more funds. I don't need your money. Help me extract information from him about where his money is, and I will help you deal with him. From then on, I take the money and go abroad, and you would never have to suffer his threats again." And Xinyu naturally dared not associate with such a person. But Lu Xiao argued earnestly, "I don't know how he threatened you, but I know he will continue to threaten you forever. I am someone who has been to prison. This criminal record will follow me my entire life, and there will always be people monitoring me. I have no future in this country, but if I change my identity and go abroad, I can live very well." Lu Xiao persuaded her, "You have no other choice. If you don't give them the money, can you bear the consequences? You can repeatedly provide money, which proves the leverage they hold over you is significant. Are you absolutely certain you won't cooperate with me?" And Xinyu had no other choice and was thus persuaded by him. So she agreed to use the honey trap against Boss Sun. Speaking of which, Su Tianquo couldn't help but tightly shut his eyes, filled with extreme regret, and said, "Back then, I shouldn't have waited for her to speak. I should have transferred the money for her mother's medication into the treatment card from the very beginning. It was because I always thought she would come to me when she couldn't bear it anymore. Who knew she would use that method instead of confiding in me? Later, she asked me for an advance on a year's salary. I secretly had people keep an eye on the blackmailer. Therefore, I asked someone to help her arrange everything properly, bought back those photos, and even had someone provide clues to the police, sending that scoundrel to prison. But who would have thought there would still be a loose end? I asked Xinyu if she knew Lu Xiao intended to kill someone. She said she did. Lu Xiao used Boss Sun's own vulnerabilities, took on the charge of murder, and planned to flee abroad. Afterward, she could have completely escaped her predicament of being threatened. However, despite all her calculations, she never anticipated that Lu Xiao would have the intention to assault her at the last moment. This foolish girl always overlooks her own charm's effect on men, and at the same time, always overestimates men's self-control. I asked her, "Are you that afraid of me knowing about those photos?" She replied, "I'm not afraid of you knowing about the photos. I'm afraid they'll use them to threaten you. I am just a person, worthless, someone who can't even afford her mother's medical expenses. It's fine if I'm ruined or disgraced. It's no big deal. But you are different. You are so good. Why must you bear so much because of me? Because of me, you became estranged from your parents. Because of me, you gave up the benefits of a powerful marriage alliance. Because of me, you endured things a man cannot endure. Do you still want me to let you be threatened by bad people, scorned by the world? laughed at and whispered about by those around you in the future. She cried profusely and said, "Now, you're even killing people for me, turning a man of great standing like you into a murderer spat upon by the world. Su Tianquo, is it worth it? There are plenty of women beside you. Why are you so loyal to just me?" She said she dared not love me. She was very afraid that even if she gave me everything, she could not repay my love. She was even more afraid that her love for me would drag me deeper, making it impossible to escape. She feared that if she left me one day, I wouldn't be able to live. She said, "I will definitely die before you." She told me to go, saying she would bear everything. But how could she bear such a great burden? Amidst the chaos, I asked her for the first time, "And Xinyu, have you ever loved me, even just a little?" "How could it be just a little? You were so good to me. Your love could warm even a stone." But what? But her heart had long been given to Qin. She still couldn't forget him. She held death in contempt, urging me to leave while demanding to call Qin. She wasn't afraid of involving Qin, yet she insisted on pushing me away. It was I who stopped her. It was I who wanted to destroy the evidence to find a way to survive. I asked, "You were the one who contacted Qin. Yes, you must all think Qin and Xinyu communicated through the game, right?" "Actually, that's not the case. It was I who had been contacting Qin in the game all this time. It's just that, when I first got together with Xinyu, I could clearly sense that she was unhappy. I'm not joyful. I feared she still harbored feelings for Qin. I knew Qin played an online mercenary game, so I registered an account using her phone number. Meaning, this account had been interacting with Qin for a whole year, and he never initiated contact. In fact, for the past 10 years, I've always wanted to bring them together. Qin felt the same way. He, who missed the last meeting with Mother Anne, could not forgive himself. Because of his own powerlessness, he could not forgive himself for letting Xinyu endure such a painful period. Therefore, when Xinyu chose me, he never tried to hold her back. Later, I was the one who initiated contact with Qin. I told him that Xinyu always had him in her heart, and that she was always sad and unhappy. He himself taught me many ways to make Xinyu happy and told me many of their past stories. Gradually, we became friends who could talk about anything and teammates who supported each other in the game. It was I who hoped he would attend our engagement ceremony, and I hoped he and Xinyu could interact like siblings. Because I understand that only when Qin is happy and joyful can Xinyu truly find peace and happiness. So, I contacted him through the game. He was indeed performing surgery at the time, but he did not need to be in the operating room for the entire 5 hours. He quietly listened to me recount the entire incident and then calmly said, "Even if Xinyu is like that, your heart will still be the same, won't it? You will still love her without hesitation. Okay, now listen to me. Do exactly as I say. First, put on gloves. If you don't have gloves, put oil on your hands. Second, find the phones of the car repair shop owner and Lu Xiao and transfer the money according to Lu Xiao's original plan." I curiously asked, "Even if Xinyu knew his savings account and password, how did you know where to transfer the money?" "We used Lu Xiao's phone to call the numbers in his contacts. His contact list was not extensive, and we found it after a few attempts. All right, now tell Xinyu to drive your car home." And Xinyu initially refused. But then Qin told her, "If you don't want to lose both Su Tianku and me on the same day, then listen to me." She had no choice but to go back first. Then Qin taught me how to handle the bloodstains. He said, "Use a damp cotton cloth to blot up the unset blood. Remember to blot, not wipe, so as not to spread the bloodstains. Then, find a waterproof tarp, move the body onto it, and add some ice to lower the corpse's temperature, which can mislead the forensic examiner in determining the time of death. I will arrive at 3:30. Within these 3 hours, you must try your best to clean the blood on the floor. Do not move anything at the scene, but be sure to find all the stains on the floor." Those 3 hours felt longer than the 30 years of my life, but after Qin arrived, I felt a sense of eternal safety. Our plan was to pin all the blame on Lu Xiao, to create a false scene as if Lu Xiao were still alive. In the evening, I was responsible for burying the 8 corpses. I also drove Chin Jun's car to areas along the river to discard the heads and murder weapons, all in places with flowing water. But as a precaution, Chin Jun told me to find a place frequented by fishermen after discarding them, so that the person could clearly see the car model and license plate. This way, once the case was discovered, all evidence would point to his car. As for him, he drove Lu Xiao's car, impersonating Lu Xiao, to an ATM to withdraw money and deliberately left Lu Xiao's DNA. Lu Xiao's car was likely equipped with a fake license plate prepared by Boss Sun, so the police could not investigate it. As for Lu Xiao's body, I don't know how he disposed of it. Chin Jun deliberately did not tell us, fearing we could not stand the interrogation. After everything was handled, we began to destroy the evidence. First, Xinyu's photos had to be thoroughly processed. Next, Xinyu and Lu Xiao had met several times. Recently, someone saw them together, for example, my housekeeper, and she also knew that I had driven Xinyu's car out that day. Therefore, I immediately arranged for her to return to her hometown. Then there were my parents. I didn't tell them directly what happened, but I hinted at it. And the most important thing was the car's journey on the road. So, we disabled the dash cam and had people caused several accidents on the road from the highway entrance to the repair shop. Then, using the accidents as an excuse, we asked traffic police or civil police to extract surveillance camera footage, the purpose being to see if any cameras captured me driving. Afterward, we used this collected information to unify our statements. Our weakest link was in Xinyu, so we added the detail that she was assaulted, so that the police would be more understanding of all her concealment and lies. Chin Jun and Xinyu both intended to protect me. They unified their stance, claiming that they had implicated me. If Chin Jun hadn't been penniless, and Xinyu wouldn't have posed for compromising photos, if not for those photos. And Xinyu wouldn't have done something so foolish, and if not for saving Xinyu, I wouldn't have killed someone. They both felt they owed me. I was a benefactor they could never forget in this lifetime, one willing to sacrifice her love, one willing to give everything for me, willingly gave everything for me, they said. Although doctors can heal and save lives, their strength is limited, facing life's hardships. They are mostly helpless. And Xinyu, as a woman, doing some trivial administrative work is worthless. But I am different. As long as I can manage the company well, I can ensure the happiness and prosperity of thousands of employees. Focusing on researching new products can bring benefits to the world. My value is infinite. They believe in me, and I will surely become an outstanding, benevolent, and socially valuable entrepreneur. Speaking of which, Su Tianku suddenly poured himself a drink and said to himself, "What am I worth? I was merely lucky in my birth, born into wealth, possessing the best educational resources and a platform to showcase my talents. My appearance is decent, my physique is fine. Everything I have learned, everything I have accomplished in life is thanks to my parents' tireless support from behind. What right do I have to be arrogant? What reputation do I deserve? Am I worth them going to such lengths for me? I never expected the truth to be like this." Hearing this, I couldn't help but sigh repeatedly. Su Tiankuo took a long time to compose himself and said, "Officer Liang, this is the truth you officers have been seeking. People say there is only one disease in the world, poverty. Yet, with all my wealth, I couldn't save the woman I love. At the same time, I have developed a profound skepticism towards this world. Out of neighborly kindness, the An family took in Chin Jun, an orphan. Yet, one passed away early, and the other contracted cancer. And Xinyu, simply because Su Tianku loved her, and she owed him money, she repaid him with herself. She stayed by his side for 10 years, meticulously taking care of every aspect of his life, big and small. Except for being unable to reciprocate his love equally, she gave him her all. Yet she was repeatedly threatened and harmed by villains. Chin Jun is a rare individual of loyalty and righteousness, willing to disregard danger and sacrifice his life for the woman he loves. He treated Su Tiankuo, his rival, with respect and gratitude, and showed no stinginess towards patients suffering from illness, yet he met such an end. A wrongdoer, merely by showing a moment of compassion, can be considered to have laid down their butcher's cleaver and immediately become a Buddha. But a good person, with just one misstep, is irredeemably damned. Is this true? I cannot answer this question, for I harbor the same doubts within myself. He said, standing up, the truth you seek I have provided, but you will find no further evidence. I will carry forward the hopes that Qin Jun and Enjinyu placed in me, and I will become an outstanding, benevolent, and socially valuable entrepreneur. Of course, if one day you find evidence, I will also accept the judgment and punishment of the law. I don't know what to say. Captain Liang was dismissed from his post due to the matter of Enjinyu and Qin Jun's suicide. Although I reported to the bureau chief when I arrived at the detention center to take Qin Jun to the hospital, urging him to expedite the procedures, it was ultimately futile. I am now questioning life itself. I have always felt regret, thinking that perhaps if I hadn't insisted on investigating to the end, such a conclusion might not have been reached. But isn't it our duty to uncover the truth of what happened? We handled the case according to the law. Where did we ultimately go wrong? At the same time, who can prove that what Su Tianku said is the truth? For example, given how much Enjinyu cared for Qin Jun, how could she have actively implicated him in a case that had nothing to do with him? Another example, if all the evidence has been destroyed, would Enjinyu have needed to resort to death to escape interrogation? One more example, Enjinyu knew she was allergic to mangoes. Why then did she suffer allergic reactions multiple times? Furthermore, why did Qin Jun confess? And why did he deliberately confess on the 5th day after the head appeared? They have meticulously pieced together all the events, so this timing of confession must have had a certain opportune moment to prompt it. The most crucial point is whether Lu Xiao is alive or dead. If alive, where is he? And if dead, where is his body? Currently, everything has become an unspoken, lengthy mystery. The lawyer escorted Suo Tianku out of the police station. As they were leaving, he couldn't help but turn back and say to me, "Please help me convey a message to Officer Liang. It is not your fault. The fault lies with us." He sent me off, saying that no matter what, people should not blame a police officer who has diligently investigated the case and pursued the truth. The end. The story is over. If you enjoyed it, please give a like and a follow. Wishing everyone great fortune and prosperity.